שוב מכה בכם. זה יום הדין, זה יום הדין, אללה לא עוזר לכם, צהל שוב מכה בכם. יום אחד קיבלתם פור, באתם בהמוניכם, נא הביטו לאחור, אללה לא עוזר לכם. זה יום הדין, זה יום הדין, אללה לא עוזר לכם, צהל שוב מכה בכם. זה יום הדין, זה יום הדין, אללה לא עוזר לכם, צהל שוב מכה בכם. כשעסקנו בתפילה, חציתם את התעלה, כשעליתם שוב בהר, לא חשבתם על מחר. זה יום הדין, זה יום הדין, אללה לא עוזר לכם, צהל שוב מכה בכם. זה יום הדין, זה יום הדין, אללה לא עוזר לכם, צהל שוב מכה בכם. אין מנוס ואין מפלט, אין לכם פשוט ברירה, אין תקווה ואין מקלט, אין כבר דרך חזרה. זה יום הדין, זה יום הדין, אללה לא עוזר לכם, צהל שוב מכה בכם. זה יום הדין, זה יום הדין, אללה לא עוזר לכם, צהל שוב מכה בכם. ברמה ובמדבר, באמצע יום הכיפורים, באתם בתרועת שופר, אך יצאתם בשברים. זה יום הדין, זה יום הדין, אללה לא עוזר לכם, צהל שוב מכה בכם. זה יום הדין, זה יום הדין, אללה לא עוזר לכם, צהל שוב מכה בכם. זה יום הדין, זה יום הדין, אללה לא עוזר לכם, צהל שוב מכה בכם.
Were you surprised to see Syrian tanks so close to your unit?
Well, no, that was a surprise because they surprised us because we were not ready for the fight, but because it was a holiday for us. Otherwise, we wouldn't make a surprise like they did today.
Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались з кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страны.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Їх доводи всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там пивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар. Байрактар. Байрактар.
Байрактар.
Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Русский военный корабль. Предлагаю сложить оружие и сдаться. Русский военный корабль, иди нахуй.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 645 of the news. And it's good to see you all once again. And it seems like Ukraine is firing something up in the background. What do you know?
And what do you know? There is the possibility that today the Ukrainians are going to start conducting a new offensive in the Zaporizhzhia area, as we saw that the Ukrainians, for one of the first times in months, took ground in an area of the front lines that has been static since about August. We're going to be covering that tonight. We don't actually have any video or picture evidence to show for it, but we do have an update on Deep State, which is suggesting that things might be heating up a little bit in that area. But beyond that, I actually saw something in our 10-minute countdown, Matthew, that I think we are going to do tonight. Many of y'all have heard about our general orders for the Sunday fundraisers to help out with donations and making sure that we help out with Ukraine as much as possible. But Green-Eyed Girl, a longtime viewer of this channel, actually gave the suggestion that we should call a general order tonight for the like button. And I thought that was a really cool idea. And so general order number General Order, Special Order, number 1, is now in effect. If you have the ability right now to hit the like button, hit it right now at the beginning of the stream, so that way we can be promoted in the algorithms, hopefully, and have our news spread out throughout the entirety of YouTube, hopefully. So hit that like button. Order, and we'll see how high the likes get.
It's not a legit special order or a general order until you do the whole spiel of order, and then it becomes legitimate.
And it does. It always becomes legitimate after that only. But we are going to be getting into the big news tonight. We will be covering what appears to be a possible new Ukrainian counteroffensive in the area of Staromylnivka today, but I want to make sure that we cover something that is very interesting on an American perspective. Many people know that there's been a small contingent of people here in the United States that have been vehemently against the war in Ukraine, saying that the money is being wasted, it's not benefiting anyone here in the country, and this war is going to drag on and on forever with no end in sight. And something interesting was actually found today after the numbers had been compiled for how U.S. support on Ukraine is actually being spent. Nearly 90% of it, something like 89% of all of the billions of dollars that we've supposedly given to Ukraine stays in the United States. This is a very interesting infographic that was made by the Washington Post, outlining the kinds of weapon systems that are made here in the United States and how many different kinds of weapon systems are made in each state. And interestingly enough, Alabama makes around 7 different weapon systems that is being currently used in Ukraine right now. Pennsylvania is the highest, with nearly 15 different kinds of weapon systems being produced in that one state that are being used in Ukraine. We have found out today, and of course this has been something that we've had a good idea about, but we didn't really have that good of an idea until today. We found out that most of the money is actually going into restocking U.S. arms piles instead of actually going towards Ukraine. For example, when we sent the 31 Abrams were already in the U.S. Arsenal's inventory. They didn't have to be built, and they weren't brand new, meaning that we pretty much took the already existing Abrams and then paid for shipping costs for them to be loaded onto a car-carrying transport over to Europe, and then, of course, paid the military to unload them and transport them to Ukraine. And that was really all of the cost involved outside of the United States. Apparently there are new costs being incurred to just produce artillery shells and ATGMs, and this is ending up producing a pretty high amount of jobs here in America. And while we haven't seen that there's been any kind of a mobilization of a war economy here in America to produce this equipment, we have heard that there's been a marked increase in the amount of jobs available in the arms production sphere. This is starting to give a lot of people here in the United States specifically some very well-paying jobs working in the munitions industry. This is also fun fact real quick, even though Alabama is not the biggest weapons producer on the list here, it looks like Arkansas or Pennsylvania is, maybe Florida as well. Alabama has gotten about $1 billion, just somewhere around 950 million in these things from Ukraine that was designed to support Ukraine to replenish U.S. stockpiles. It's almost $1 billion in Alabama alone, which is nuts. And also we have like the Redstone Arsenal, which develops a lot of weaponry, and we have a ton of like major defense contractors here as well, which is really cool. Some folks don't know that about Alabama. We're not just backwoods. We have actually smart engineers here as well. Well, I think we're refined backwoods because we're still out there, saying, that's not my perch. I don't know you. But we're doing it in really elaborate and sophisticated ways these days. But anyways, getting out of this, the important takeaway, and I think this is something that really quashes an anti-Ukraine argument, because people say there's no inherent benefit to the United States, this constant provision of weapons and systems to Ukraine has produced tens of thousands of brand new well-paying jobs here in the United States, and that's always a priority of the U.S. government, is to try and make sure that American citizens have some very well-paying jobs. And while it's not necessarily, making stuffed puppies or anything like that, it's making a bomb, but nevertheless, it is providing a lot of people with some very good jobs. And I think that's something important to remember when people talk about giving support to Ukraine. It's not only furthering U.S. strategic interest abroad, it's also helping out fellow citizens here at home with making sure that they will be able to pay their own bills by working in the munitions industry. But moving on from that, and that interesting little bit of news there, we're now going to be moving out of the United States and on back into Ukraine. We didn't get any news outside of Ukraine internationally today. We did, however, hear something interesting. I didn't put this down as a bulletin in the Middle East, but we did hear that there was an agreement to extend the ceasefire another 24 hours. And so until those next 24 hours are over, we're suspecting there's not going to be a lot of news coming out of Ukraine at all. Well, I'm sorry, not Ukraine, Israel at all, or the Middle East for that matter. So we once again have no news segment on that tonight. But if the hostilities do begin, once the ceasefire is over, y'all can always be guaranteed that we will be getting coverage of it, even if YouTube continuously makes sure to curb us in the algorithms, never promote us to anybody, or anything like that. We care about y'all, and we care about the news y'all hear. We want it to be as honest and straightforward as possible, and even if that means we take a hit in the end on being promoted to other people around YouTube, that is the risk we will take to get y'all the right news coverage y'all are looking for. But moving on into Ukraine, we saw that the Russians have conducted a deep drone strike today at the airfield in Kryvyi Rih. The Ukrainian Air Force has been operating throughout all of Ukraine, but one of the most specific areas is here at this airfield in Kryvyi Rih. I believe there's also a second one nearby, but I'm not seeing it at the moment. But this is the military air base that we understand to be at Kryvyi Rih, and it is possible that the Ukrainian Air Force has used this on and off during the earlier phases of the war and even recently. But the Ukrainian Air Force is so small, and they have such a large number of air bases inside of Ukraine, they actually rotate the units around every once in a while from air base to air base, so that way the Russians don't know exactly where these air wings are, although that's still a pretty elaborate process to move all of the ground equipment from one airfield to the next. Nevertheless, we did see today that the Russians conducted a deep strike against this Ukrainian airfield at Kryvyi Rih, and it ended up being all for naught because they hit a decoy of an SU-25. It wasn't even a real one. We're going to be muting the music, but we can see this little SU-25 right here. Looks pretty real, and it's not. I got to tell you all that in advance. This is not a real SU-25, but the drone's about to come down and hit it. And we can see the drone coming in, and right there at that point on the camera, we can see that the plane is completely fake. We can see that they have some kind of a fake cockpit right here. It's not actual glass. It's some kind of a wood construction that was painted black to make it look like a cockpit. This thing is fake through and through, and the Ukrainians built all of this to be a decoy, so that way instead of a real aircraft getting hit, which costs around $25 million and is practically irreplaceable for the Ukrainian Air Force at this point, until they get F-16s or something else newer and greater, it's much better for them to hit a several thousand or maybe $10,000 balsa wood decoy of an Su-25. While I hear Matthew's keys clacking in the background. But we can see the Su-25 get hit, and as soon as it gets hit, the camera continues to focus on the hit site, and we can see a still frame of the explosion there. And we can once again see a zoomed in look at the Su-25, and once again, it is a decoy, and it's just incredibly clear because of the cockpit. The cockpit is completely fake and painted on, but still, really cool to see, and I gotta say, it's a smart move by the Ukrainians to spend a little bit of money on decoys, especially for the Ukrainian Air Force, instead of losing an irreplaceable $25 million Su-25 like they would have if they didn't have that decoy. Moving on from that little bit of news and on into the area of Dnipro, we also got to see that the 135th Territorial Defense Brigade was firing their machine guns at an incoming Shahed attack overnight, and appears to have hopefully been successful. And we can see the Gush gun going for it, and a lot of them going for it. Oh, they got one! Hey!
Let's
go!
go!
Let's get it, baby! We see them continuing to fire. We can just see the entire air is filled with tracer rounds from all of these anti-aircraft guns.
Oh, look at that.
And they got proof! They have proof!
Man, it went to like still images, like an old family photo.
Look, this is when me and Tabozhanka were out there in the playground and we saw the Shahed. And oh, look, this is the next one where we found the other piece. Oh, memories. But still, love to see it. That is really funny. And with that, that's the end of that little clip. But of course, great to see. We're now going to be moving on from the area around Dnipro, and we're also going to be speaking about a little bit of air defense throughout the entirety of Ukraine. It's kind of a rear line kind of a occurrence, and people don't really talk about it much. And the Ukrainians really have started to flesh out, especially due to massive amounts of Western support, the variety of air defenses they have and the abilities that these air defenses possess. And probably one of the most interesting ones that has really never been mentioned beyond a single, I think, sentence inside of an arms package are the Avenger Humvees. These are really cool. This one was actually pictured near the Kyiv Oblast just this month. But we can see right here, I think it's a, they say it's an Avenger AN something, but the entire package attached to the Humvee has a specific name. It's like the M998 Avenger or something like that. But this is a Humvee-carried anti-aircraft mount. It actually has, I believe, 2 machine guns and 8 Stinger missiles ready to fire at any given moment. It's an incredibly neat system because it's one of the few that the U.S. has that could provide any kind of air support in the field that's based off of a mobile platform. Unlike other countries like the Russian Federation or the former Soviet Union that heavily focused on surface-to-air missile sites being easily forward deployed and incredibly mobile, the United States never really focused on that as a strategic doctrine, instead relying on the overwhelming ability of the U.S. Air Force to provide the complete air superiority wherever we needed it, or the U.S. Navy in other instances. So the need for air defense systems like a SAM site was almost completely unneeded. That's why we didn't have a lot of development in that area. The few systems that we had, well, actually, really the only system we had during the Cold War, let me show you all this because this is very interesting because the doctrine in these aspects are completely different from one another. But there was the iHawk, which was a mobile SAM battery. It was incredibly archaic, though. This thing was introduced in the service in 1960 and was used, I believe, almost all the way up until the Gulf War itself. But this was your normal mobile SAM site that the U.S. Army would have used if a war had broken out in Europe. And by the time...
That looks like something you'd find off of Fallout 4 or something. It looks like it shouldn't be real, but it is.
It is, and it's really bizarre because by the time of the 80s, the Russians were starting to deploy the S-300s. And we all know what the S-300s look like, so I'll show you all this. S-300. I said we all know what it looks like, and then I go and pull up a picture of it anyways. But let me make sure to get a picture, just in case if some of y'all don't know what it looks like, because, I don't want to leave y'all in the dark. Let's see, here we go. This will be good. So... by the 80s, the Soviet Union was deploying S-300 missile systems, and about the best system we had out there was the Hawk. That's what you would have normally seen as your backbone of the air defenses of the United States at that time in history. Of course, the Patriot battery was introduced just in time for the Gulf War. I believe it was being introduced in the very late 80s, sometimes around like 1989, I believe, and it's been in service ever since. We just don't put a lot into air defense systems. And also another air defense system that y'all would have seen back during the Cold War, and once again, these are the very few air defense systems that the U.S. really ever had, was the M163 pivots. And these were incredibly cool. It was just an M113 with a 20 millimeter Gatling gun mounted on top in a turret, and it had a very archaic, it was a very simplistic radar that would allow for the gun to possibly try and get a sight picture on the aircraft and adjust for the lead. Very basic, very simple, but did it work? For the most part, from what we understand, it would have most likely worked at some very close ranges. It's kind of like a CWIS or a close-in weapon system, but it doesn't have a computer guiding it. It's just some guy in a turret who's guiding the gun instead. Pretty cool, though, and those were really the only air defense systems we had outside of this thing in this picture, the Avenger. The Avenger was one of the last air defense systems that we started to have by the time the Soviet Union was collapsing. It was an incredibly, it was a highly mobile, because it was on a Humvee, air defense system mounted with 2 machine guns. I believe these are 50 caliber machine guns. I'll have to go back and check. But it also had the Stingers. And this provided a decent amount of air defense for U.S. forces on the ground, just in case the Air Force was not there in that specific area to help out. And we can see multiple pictures of this thing moving through the fields around Kyiv, being set up. We can also see them appearing to load more Stingers, and we can also see an aerial view of this Avenger looking directly at the drone. Also, what's a really cool thing about this is that if you look right there at this turret, there is a giant plexiglass cover, and how this thing works is that there is no like computer sight or infrared or anything. It is the Mark I eyeball. That guy's just sitting in there looking through a windshield at his target, and then he'll turn on the Stingers, spool them up, and then fire them once they lock on. That's how the air defense system works.
That's like something they'd have out of the Flintstones. You know how like the birds like were inside the machinery, like actually operating it.
Yeah.
Well, they got a real person sitting in this one operating the missile system.
It's honestly kind of neat, I'm not going to lie. But still, pretty interesting stuff to see. And it's cool to know that the Ukrainians do have a wide variety of air defense systems to work off of to defend the airspace around Kyiv and other places. Moving on from that and into our location unknowns, we also got some pretty interesting stuff here. Starting off with our first one of the Ukrainian military showing off some of their innovations. And of course, this was brought to us by none other than the amazing folks over at United 24. And so, here is the clip.
How have we envisioned the war of the future in cinema? Something like this? However, the reality of the war is quite different from what we see in movies. Tiny sensors help the military literally hear threats from a distance, and artificial intelligence is combating propaganda. So what do the latest technological trends in warfare really look like? In October, major global media outlets such as CNN, Newsweek, Interest in Engineering, Independent, and Business Insider reported on the Ukrainian cloak. Weighing just a few kilograms, it is compact, heat-resistant, and protects against adverse weather conditions. Moreover, it shields against the enemy. At night, it essentially functions as an invisibility cloak, blocking thermal radiation and making soldiers invisible to thermal imaging devices. This is just one of the developments from the Ukrainian defense tech.
Man, I remember when we covered that like 2.5 months ago and we got flamed because everyone said it wasn't even good or new or anything. Man,
I remember that.
I remember that.
Cluster Brave 1. Launched in April, it aims to assist in implementing innovative solutions that enhance security and defense forces on the front lines and beyond. In just 6 months, the platform has already hosted over 700 defense tech projects. Currently, the priorities lie in 4 main directions: ground robotic complexes, electronic warfare and reconnaissance, demining, artificial intelligence, and among them, there are some particularly interesting projects. For example, there is the combat robot Rys that can be used for delivering supplies or evacuating the wounded. Well, what if we add something more to it? Let's say Shabla, a remotely controlled fire module developed by the same company. It is equipped with a thermal imager and a video camera, a rangefinder, and most importantly, a machine gun of 7.62 or 12.7 caliber. So Rys plus Shabla is not just a courier or evacuation robot anymore. It becomes a combat machine for assault and defense, controlled by a human operator. The operator remains in a safe place, and the enemies, well, thanks to this robot, not really. Dozens of Shabla combat turrets and Rys platforms are already proving themselves on the front lines. For instance, the renowned Vovki Da Vinci, Wolves of Da Vinci, are utilizing this system in the Kupiansk direction.
The first factor for the enemy is practical. A machine gun is coming at you. The second is psychological, because it's one thing when you are fighting against the living, and other when it's unmanned gadgets. Even if
we got Cossack Gundy over here, to like Crocodile Gundy or Dundee or whatever, it's a Cossack Dundee.
when it's unmanned gadgets.
Impressive.
Even if you kill it, you are just destroying a piece of metal. Despite my affection for this thing, it's just a piece of iron. And the third component is economic. This system costs about $22,000. Compared to the life of an infantryman, it's nothing.
Another headache for the opponent can be posed by Loot, a remotely controlled combat robot with a 360 panoramic camera and armor protecting against firearms and shrapnel. Loot meets enemies seriously with 10 hours of combat operation and a 7.62 caliber machine gun. A prominent representative in the field of artificial intelligence from the Brave One platform is Mantis Analytics. This system collects real-time data from social media and news outlets, identifying dangerous trends such as the onset of enemy propaganda or information attacks. All data is processed by artificial intelligence and relayed to the relevant authority.
Oh God, artificial intelligence. They're going to kill us all. Oh!
Wait a minute, who's making this one?
The Ukrainians are.
Huh, so like starts picking out, it says reductio ad Hitlerum.
Wait, what?
What
Where?
did that mean? Over there on the right, the 8th one says reductio ad Hitlerum.
Bandwagon.
What the casual oversimplification? That tag's gonna go on pretty much everything on the internet. I'm not sure how useful this is gonna be.
Repetition. So every time I run a stream, they just flag us every time for repetition and slogans. We say LSA watch list. And then I sit there.
This is what YouTube does, by the way. Like when they watch your videos with AI, do they put tags on it like this?
I wonder. That's an interesting question. I wonder if they do. But anyways, we're gonna get back to that video.
Mantis Analytics quickly detected a disinformation campaign started in Russia based on fabricated quotes attributed to a famous Marine fighter from Azovstal, Volhyna. The false narrative claimed that high-ranking U.S. military officials were present in Mariupol. Mantis Analytics reported this, and
I mean, that's not true. I mean, they weren't in Mariupol, but, wouldn't that be kind of cool if they were? I'm just saying, y'all. I mean, that would be kind of neat if they were, but they weren't.
Ukraine promptly
FPS Kyle on the left?
fabricated.
Dude, FPS Russia graduated. He moved on to FPS Ukrainian, man.
Quotes. Speaking of countering mechanisms, Piranha offers a complete range of Ukrainian-made anti-drone solutions. For example, an anti-drone gun is capable of successfully jamming signals from drones, including those with first-person view, FPV, at distances of up to 1.5 kilometers. The system also operates in a non-gun format.
The functionality is expanded because you can attach other antennas. Then it's not a gun anymore. It's just an antenna and remote control that allows you to have a protective dome at range of 100 to 200 meters, ensuring that no drone can approach.
Piranha can also operate while in motion, which helps to protect vehicles from FPV drones. In the next model, an active direction finder is planned, which will autonomously detect approaching enemy drones and suppress them without direct intervention from the operator. Protection from aerial threats is also provided by the Zvuk technology. Its name, translated from Ukrainian, means sound. The name is descriptive. The system, based on machine learning, literally listens to enemy cruise missiles, helicopters, drones, and planes. Thanks to special sensors and machine learning, it does so with 99% accuracy from a distance. This aids air defense forces in striking the target and civilians in seeking shelter in a timely manner. One sensor costs only $500, but its coverage radius extends up to 10 kilometers. Another project, Falcons, also detects drones and any enemy device emitting radio signals, using radio-electronic methods rather than acoustic ones. Recently, Falcons and Zvuk
wasn't that just like a regular ground-based radar system?
Kind of, yeah, but it's still, still a little bit.
They're hyping it up, man. They're getting into that marketing.
Yeah, they're hyping it up a little bit, probably looking for some contracts out there in the world. It's a little here and there, some folks like that kind of stuff.
Increasing precision and the distance at which enemy targets can be detected. These are just a few examples of over 700 projects that have passed through Brave 1. More than 70 of them have already received funding. In addition to the 4 priority directions, the cluster also engages in other defense technology areas, including reconnaissance, navigation, logistics, cybersecurity, protection and attack systems, and med tech.
Man, I swear that reconnaissance thing up there in the top left corner is the symbol that they have in video games for when you get spotted,
True, and that's also the watcher's profile picture too when they're on the stream.
Oh yeah, that's right.
The strategic goal of Brave 1 is for Ukraine to be among the leaders in the global defense technology market, and they are already achieving this. Ukraine continues to defend the values of the free world, doing so in an intelligent, technological, and modern way.
I'm telling you, man, if Ukraine would open an FPV drone store and sell their custom drones, they would sell out instantly and make a ton of money.
Oh, they probably would. I would be in there. I mean, not for not for the reason of blowing up a tank, but I would just be in there. They look pretty good. But moving on from that and into our next clip, we also got to see that the Ukrainian SUV was still going strong, even after being plastered by a Russian drone strike. Here is the clip.
Bastard.
Man. And it's still rolling. Mad respect. The silence is deafening, but mad respect to that Lada, or whatever that is, that survived. But moving on from that and into our next bit of news, we also got to see something that I actually have to say we had to include, Matthew, tonight, because as you may know, Matthew, there was some heat going around out there in the kitchen about a group of people saying that Ukraine had made a new quote-unquote BMP thing. And apparently that was too stupid of a statement to make, is calling the thing a BMP thing. Well, we found this thing. It's new. We don't even know what the hell this thing really is called, but it's a new BMP thing that the Ukrainians have made that's a modification of the last one. So, here's the clip. We don't know what the designation of this thing is. Everyone's just saying it's a BMP with a new turret. I've never seen this turret before in my life, and it's a pretty big change from everything we've ever seen before put on a BMP. It has some kind of an autocannon. It has smoke grenade launchers. It looks a lot like the 30mm autocannon mounted onto a BTR-4. But
I think you could appropriately call that the BMP thing. That would probably work.
I have a feeling that I would have to agree with who said that. That really is just a BMP thing. It doesn't have a designation. We don't really know what it is, and we don't know why it has that turret. But I have to say, that is the BMP thing. That's what we're going to call that from here forward, the BMP thing. A pretty adept description of what it is. It has a 30mm autogun. It has smoke grenades on the turret. It also appears that the turret may possibly be automated, because we're not seeing any hatches for a commander or a gunner. And it looks like it may be an attempt to try and give the BMP-1s, because we can tell right here, because there is 2 hatches, one for the commander and one for the driver. This was originally a BMP-1. It looks like it's trying to give the BMP-1s the firepower similar to that of a BMP-2 or a BTR-4, but also make sure that it may be usable as an infantry carrier, or they may be trying to convert this into some kind of a light tank of a sort. Regardless, it's a very interesting kind of a upgrade and innovation, and we'll be waiting to see what this thing really does turn into. And also, you are correct, Crashin. Apparently it can mount a Stugna missile or several as well, but sadly we haven't really been able to see that yet. But with that, hope that does address that well, because, you know, we had to get to that clip. Very interesting to see. And moving on from that and into the next one, we got to see a really cool autocannon being used by the Ukrainians on the back of a truck. This thing is a Zastava M75 20mm autocannon, very similar to the Orlikons that you would have found on US ships back during World War II. Chad music ensues. But we can see him trying to aim it, and he's about to start firing. And there we go. Really cool little gun. It's a small one, but I think it's neat.
Just imagine if they put a recliner in the back of that pickup truck with that gun. They'd be true Southern redneck.
Man, Jebediah, give me that whiskey. Brr, brr. And man, that thing's actually putting out some fire. Really nice.
Man, this new Lazy Boy is so comfortable, and it's 50 cal. Man, it bangs.
Man, I'll tell you what. You know something crazy I actually found out today, Matthew? I was looking around the Class 3 machine gun world because, you know, I was curious, what are the prices in those categories these days?
Crazy expensive.
Crazy expensive, but a Tommy gun runs about $30,000 US. An M16 closer to $40,000 to $50,000.
Oh,
an AK-47 somewhere around like $45,000. But what was crazy, and let me show you this. And let me type this in. Let's see, machine gun. Let me go get this here. Let me go get a picture of this thing. A good one. Come on, give me a good one. Give me a good one, baby. Oh, let's see here. I'm gonna have to go to Google Images for this. Here we go. So, this one here, the Colt M1917 machine gun. It's belt-fed. It's very, well, it's actually not that similar to a Vickers or a Maxim. It actually has a pretty different internals, although it looks very similar to those other two. How much do you think this thing was going for?
That, it looks like it's probably God tier money. So it's probably like 100,000.
You wouldn't believe this. 12 to 17,000.
12 to 17,000. It must just be like a wall piece or something then.
No, it's a fully operational machine gun, class 3 transferable, and it was going for somewhere in between 12 to 17,000 from what I was seeing. And I was completely blown away because an M16 to me just feels less than this is. I mean, this is, from a collector's perspective, at least to me, it would be way more expensive than an M16. And not only that, this thing, to me, has a lot more potential, you know, if you're talking about an automatic. Like an M16, you can put like a 30 rounds, stick magazine onto that thing, and, you know, you can switch it to auto and fire it. But this thing, you can put like a 200 round belt into the box and just fire this thing until it runs out. I was like, how the hell is this only 12,000 compared to, you know, everything else being like 50,000, 70,000? Oh, by the way, you're not going to believe this, Maddie. I saw an M240B. It's the machine gun that the U.S. military is using nowadays. How much do you think that was sold for?
And it's a modern one, like made in like recent years?
Yeah, the M240 Bravo. Let me go pull that up.
Yeah, let me see a picture and I can probably tell you.
This right here.
Oh, that looks expensive. It's modern too. I would probably say, just taking an uneducated guess, probably about 40,000.
Mm-hmm. You would think that, wouldn't you? You would think that. What if I told you that there is only one of these in the entire United States that is transferable?
I wouldn't be surprised.
And what if I told you that it's sold for $245,000?
Cap.
I'm not capping. That's how much it actually sold for. It was $245,000.
Who the hell bought it? Was it public? Like who bought the thing? Because surely that wasn't just like your average Joe buying that. Did Musk buy it?
Nah, I don't know. It was from Rock Island Arsenal. I don't think they list off who buys them, but I saw this on Rock Island Arsenal. It sold for $245,000. And GW North said, how much for a bar? I think I saw those going for like $35,000, 35 to 40. So that actually, you know, like. And when I say it's not that bad, y'all have to remember, I'm not talking about like normal money. I'm talking about like machine gun kinds of money where everything is tens of thousands of dollars. That wasn't that bad to me for it to only be 35 to 40, considering like M16s are like 50,000 now. But what was even weird to me is like crappy guns like Uzis and Mac 10s were like $7,000 to $9,000, and I was like, that is just bizarre to think that people would spend that kind of money for machine guns. You know, now I will say this, y'all. If we got the chance, I'm not going to buy one, but if we got the chance to review machine guns for gun review videos, I would be down for that. But I would never buy one because it is just a waste of money, at least to me, in my opinion. But anyways, moving on from all of that side shoot business about guns and stuff, speaking of that autocannon, we're now going to be moving on into our last bit of Location Unknown news. And y'all know that this is the juiciest part of the Location Unknown news every single day. It is the Russian casualty report, and let's take a look at what we got. Oh!
Man, they're doing good today. Only 3 Bobcats, but all the other numbers are looking sweet.
Is that scrumptious enough?
I'm trying so hard to make that noise loud enough for the mic to pick up. I'm like, it probably sounds wrong on the other end.
Man, I gotta tell you, I gotta say, the Bobcats, 3 of them being destroyed, pretty good day. We've topped out. I mean, that's not bad at all. And also, not only that, 1,180 Russian soldiers have died over the past 24 hours. Very good. The Ukrainians are doing a very good job defending the lines. Now, something interesting that y'all might want to know is that today is the last day of November. And because of these losses, Russia over the month of November had losses as high as the British Army saw on an average month in the First World War.
What?
Pretty freaking high, I would have to say. That's very high when in 1 month of a war that isn't like. Let me say this because I'm going to say this and then some people are going to get offended and it's not meant this way. World War I is a world-changing war, hence the name. On the scale of importance, say of World War I versus the Russian war in Ukraine. The Ukraine war is nowhere close to being as significant as World War I at all, especially with the players involved, everything. It's not that significant compared to World War I. And somehow the Russians are taking losses over 1 month in a war that isn't even close to really being like World War I. They've taken losses that are so high it's putting them on par with World War I historically. That is terrible. The Russians can't keep up these kinds of losses. They're going to have to really stop all of their offensive operations all over the lines and just give the initiative entirely to Ukraine over these next few months, because they can't attain this stuff. They are having to try and replace nearly 1,200 soldiers a day at this point. The logistical strain of that alone has to be surreal and completely unfathomable. And in fact, probably impossible to really account for and deal with over such a sustained period of time as an entire month. It's unbelievable. Like, I don't even really know how to, like, stress this enough and hit it home. To think that over a month, the Russians have lost, I think it was approximately like 25,000 men in 1 month. You're talking about, hell, let me think of that. Let me actually do the math. It's 3,000 men in a brigade. So, 3,000, let's see here. 25,000 divided by, oh my God, come on, calculator. I can't even type it in right. 25,000 divided by 3,000. We're talking about nearly 8 brigades, or probably around 2.5 Russian divisions entirely destroyed in just November. And I can't say it enough. That's really going to have some kind of an impact on the Russian army, at least over these next few weeks and months. But moving on from that, 28 armored personnel carriers were also destroyed, along with another 13 supply trucks, 13 tanks, 1 artillery system. It appears that the Ukrainian counter battery did almost nothing today, 10 drones, and then the 3 special equipment vehicles. All in all, not that bad of a day, all things considered, and hopefully we'll be seeing, and hopefully we will, that the Russians continue to take these kinds of massive losses, because they will not be around for that long. And also, the truth teller said Russia has regiments, not brigades. That's not true. Every single military around the world is organized from squad to platoon to company to battalion to a regiment, and then from regiment, I believe it's to the brigade, and then from brigade to division, and then from division to army corps, and then the army corps form an army, and then multiple armies form an army group. That's how it's arranged. There's no such thing as the Russians don't have that organization structure, because they do. That's why we see.
Sounds like the enforcer wants to give him a spanking for that.
No, it's just that it's just that
I'm just joking.
It's just that it's like, you know, it sounds a little unwise to say they don't have that, because that's like saying because America has fire squads or fire teams, we don't have platoons. No, we do have platoons. It's just that the fire teams are a extension of the squads that are then combined into creating a platoon. But they do have, divisions, brigades. They have it all. It's just that on the actual fighting level, their units are broken down into battalion tactical groups, which are the basic fighting elements of the Russian army. But with that, I hope that does address that well. And we're now moving on from those massive losses we just saw right there, and we're getting on into that juicy frontline news. And we're going to be getting down to Staromaiorske in a minute, where we've heard that the Ukrainians may be possibly opening a new offensive. So, make sure to stick around as we get through the news, because we'll try and talk about that in as much detail as we possibly can, given all the information we have right now. But not only that, a lot of y'all have been saying things, and they're interesting. What do we have, Matthew?
All right, so y'all have been saying a lot, and we've been having 2 polls running for the last 30, 40 minutes or so, and the first one says, are you surprised to learn that most of Ukraine aid is spent domestically to replenish U.S. stockpiles? 50% said no, that's not surprising. 38% said yes, it's surprising but acceptable. 7% said unsure, and 6% said yes, it's surprising but unacceptable. And on this one, I personally find it to be acceptable. We are sending Ukraine what we currently have, so it could be viewed as dumping equipment. But in my view, we shouldn't send Ukraine, all the finest and newest equipment, because that should be reserved for the United States, because we are the ones ultimately buying and purchasing the weaponry. So to me, it's fine that Ukraine gets secondhand equipment, as long as it's not, in foul shape, where it doesn't work that right or it's defective. I say that's perfectly acceptable. And to me, I would say that's really not surprising. But then again, we've been following the war very closely for a long time. So, obviously it might be surprising to some people. But Enforcer, what say you?
It's not really all that surprising to me, and I think it's a great thing to hear. I know a lot of people think the money should be going to Ukraine, and it is, because we're sending them the equivalent of that, what we're spending here domestically overseas, and we're just paying to have that stuff replaced in stockpiles with new and more advanced equipment here at home. I think that it's great to hear that, because not only is it providing support to Ukraine in the long term, but it also is providing a lot of people here in the United States with well-paying jobs. And of course, thinking on a national level, a domestic level, it's always important to try and get people the best paying jobs possible. And defense jobs are some of the best, even in the lower levels, like in munitions manufacturing, where you're not designing a new weapon, you're just making an existing one. There's still some pretty good wages and salaries to be had down in those job positions. And I would say that that's great to hear. It's good to know that there is an inherent benefit to just the common American citizenry, and that makes it a lot more marketable. And that sounds a little bit weird, but you have to remember that here in America, you always have to market things, policies, and directives of the government to the public to make it seem like it's worthwhile. And that does make it a lot more marketable to different demographics here in the United States that the war is in fact beneficial for America, and it's beneficial for us to support them for strategic reasons, humanitarian reasons, domestic reasons, and economical reasons, because in the end, it ends up being a complete win for the United States, even for the average Joe here in the United States that's just looking for a job. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, because that would be my opinion on it. Once again, not that shocked. We have known for a long time, especially being here in Alabama, that right down in Troy, they've been producing all of the Javelin ATGMs. Well, most of them, and I believe they produce almost all of the ammunition for them down in Troy, Alabama. And so we've known for a while that this supply of weapons and equipment to Ukraine has been producing jobs and economic prosperity in places like Troy, Alabama, among many other cities around the country in multiple different states. But with that, I hope that does address that well. And once again, I have to say this really quickly. I have been noticing that our like ratio has been exorbitantly high tonight. There are nearly 2,500 likes already at this point in the stream. Usually we would be at the end of the stream to get this kind of likes right here. Once again, I have to remind everyone that if you have joined us, two things. One, we have a general order tonight for you to hit the like button, because it does help out our channel massively in spreading our news around to people who may have not heard about it before. And also, I have to share with you all really big news that we will not be running a stream tomorrow on Friday. I want to make sure that we get this out live on air, because some people don't see our community posts or follow our Twitter when we make the announcements there, but we will be taking tomorrow off. We have an exam very late in the afternoon tomorrow. It'll be ending at 5 o'clock, which is exactly when I usually start working, and so by the time I actually got home, because it's about an hour drive home, I would then not be able to even make the news for that night, or if I did, it would be a very quick rush job, and I wouldn't have any time to really try and understand what's going on in Ukraine or discuss it in great detail. And so instead of, sacrificing our quality just to have a show, we decided not to run a show and then just cover the next 48 hours of the war on Saturday instead. Of course, if you hate to see us go, we hate to see ourselves go as well. And if y'all would like, and if y'all like to support the channel, make sure to support us tonight, because we will not be on tomorrow. And I guarantee y'all that your support does help this channel to be possible. And also, BC Skyman said, why not a general order of $5 support the enforcers? It's something that actually a lot of people have started to do on Fridays, which of course we won't be live tomorrow for. But one thing I want to say is that while our support may be lower now than it has been in the past, and when I say that, it is actually a good bit lower, we don't want people to feel like they're obligated to support the channel. Either people appreciate the channel enough to support it and help us to keep it running, or the channel dies. We don't really want to be the people that you see on YouTube that beg for money. If people don't like the channel enough to support it, then that's, that is what it is. That's, as someone out there said before, them's the breaks. And then we just, disappear because, we won't be able to pay our bills and we'll have to find some way to do it. But with that, I hope that does address that well. Good question, though. But I never want to, beg people for support. I'll beg y'all to support a fundraiser to help out people in Ukraine, but I don't ever want y'all to feel like y'all have to support this channel. That's something that's entirely up to y'all as an option, and also it's entirely up to y'all how much y'all decide to support the channel with. That's entirely up to y'all, and I never wanted to make y'all feel like y'all are obligated to do that. But with that, we are on to the next poll.
All right, and our next poll says, do you think Russian propaganda has a major negative impact on Ukraine, or is it minimal? 43% said no, it only has a minimal impact. 29% said yes, it has a major one. 19% said it depends on the details, and 8% said unsure. And on that one, I gotta say, to me personally, Russian propaganda only really makes a difference in the West, because obviously those in Ukraine actually know what's happening, and there's only a very small amount in Ukraine that actually fall for that propaganda. But then again, the public opinion in the West can greatly sway what the government does. And without getting into politics, I think it does have a greater impact over here, and that can lead to pretty devastating results. But overall, I would say it's a moderate impact. It's not as extreme as some would suggest, but it does have an impact. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say, can you reread that again?
Do you think Russian propaganda has a major negative impact on Ukraine, or is it minimal?
I have a feeling it's kind of minimal. I actually haven't run into a lot of people who like just chug Russian propaganda. I used to way back in the day. For some reason, I just had the luck of running into every pro-Russian imaginable in Alabama, but I don't really see that much anymore. A lot of people like I've been around in places where you would think that people would be pro-Russian, just because, that's the there's a certain stereotype nowadays that certain people are always going to be pro-Russian, and and people attack them and crap, and it's completely unjustified, and it's just splitting the Ukraine war supporters into two different camps. But there's actually one group of folks that I know that are very political in a certain way that would make you think that they're not Ukraine war supporters. But then they have friends that are actually volunteers in the International Legion currently fighting in Ukraine. And what's even cooler is that one of them came back to America and gave one of these folks that I know a watch off of a dead Ka-52 helicopter pilot that he had, and it was a little Russian Air Force watch with like a special little symbol on it and everything, and he also put in sharper on the band of the watch a Z. And so he took it off the Ka-52 pilot, brought it back, and I got to see the watch, and it was pretty cool. And everyone at this place is like, yeah, we support Ukraine through and through. And, and that's what I've seen largely, is that no matter what people fall on, for the most part, they almost are always pro-Ukrainian. If you hear people that say that half of America is pro-Russian, they are flat out liars. That's really the only way I can explain it, because from my experience wandering around Alabama, I haven't seen that. I've rarely ever seen that. People who are on both extreme sides of the spectrum usually support Ukraine through and through. There's a small amount of them that don't. And so that's what just drives me wild, is the people who take their stupid political squabbles and then try and attack other pro-Ukraine supporters with using that as their basis, and they end up splitting Ukraine war support down the middle, where half of everyone leaves because the other half ran them away. That's not anything smart to do, and that's not anything beneficial. But with that would be my opinion. I don't think it has much of an impact, but I will tell you one thing that does have an impact, in my opinion, and we've seen this a lot, and we're seeing it even right now, are people who say they're pro-Ukrainian, but they do more to divide the community than anyone else ever does. They will go around and attack everyone else because they want to look like they're mightier than thou. Honestly, pro-Ukraine supporters do more damage to the pro-Ukraine community than Russian propaganda ever could, because some people are out there just fighting, and they don't care. They don't give a damn if they destroy the entire community in the process. All they care about is trying to look like they're the best at the end of the day, even if it means that the Ukraine war community dies in the process. It's absolutely scummy. It's low down. It's sick. But nevertheless, that's what I've seen a good bit, and that's usually what ends up killing a lot of movements out there in the world. That's what ended up killing the civil rights movement back in the 60s, is that after Martin Luther King died, a lot of the civil rights leaders started to have a lot of infighting, and that's really how the civil rights movement of the 60s kind of died, is that a lot of them wanted to try and look mightier than thou than the other, and push harder for different policies against the moderates, and then attack the moderates for their position, and then the entire movement fell apart. And that's a lot what we're seeing kind of right now. That would be my honest take. I'd see that Russian propaganda is easily brushed aside by most everyone as just being absolute dog water. Nobody believes it, because it's not even believable anymore. When you hear them say that they destroyed 60 Abrams in a day, and the Ukrainians only have 30, it's just white noise. It doesn't even matter. But when someone out there wants to say another person is pro-Russian just because of A, B, and C, and they're stupid reasons, and they're not even true, and they're just, making people hate another Ukraine war supporter, and then making some people get turned off because of all of the infighting and stuff, that does more damage to supporting Ukraine than anything else. And what's even worse is nowadays, it seems like some Ukrainians even are wanting to hop on that bandwagon and try and attack other people who have supported Ukraine through and through for 2 years straight now, and they want to attack them just because it seems to be in the vogue. That's how you end up killing off support for Ukraine, and that's how the Russians end up winning. It's not because of their own propaganda, it's because of the infighting that will happen within this community. Remember, a house divided against itself will not stand, and that's the one thing that everyone has to remember. And so if you see anyone out there that sits there and says they're pro-Ukrainian, but goes out of their way to deliberately attack other people who are also pro-Ukrainian to try and elevate themselves, that is no one that you should be believing is pro-Ukrainian. They're pro themselves, and they're only using Ukraine as a vehicle to move themselves forward. That's the honest truth. But with that, I hope that does address that well, because that would be my opinion on the matter, seeing what we're seeing right now. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so that was our last poll to address, so we are moving into our super chats as usual. And real quick, while I grab one more here, our first super chat is going to go to, let's see, don't freeze up on me now. This one goes to Hal Rose, who puts in a $33 donation. And thank you very much, Hal, longtime channel viewer, for that support. He says, Enforcer Map, a YouTube channel I watch is TVP, and they are gathering email addresses for a Ukrainian focus group. Also, a guest Lieutenant Colonel Hunter Ripley Rawling the 4th came on to talk about disabled veterans. And pick a question from the chat, please.
And that's very interesting to hear. I don't know if we'll be reached out, if they'll reach out to us. If they do, that's pretty neat. But, it's fine if they don't. I'm just here doing my thing. But I still thank you for sharing that with us, and we'll be seeing if that ever happens or not. But still, thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, Hal Rose, sharing that little tidbit with us, and also sponsoring a live chat. Folks like you helped make this channel possible, and if it wasn't for you, Hal Rose, we wouldn't be able to keep this channel running. We thank everyone who supports the channel, and, while we never want people to feel like they have to support the channel, everyone who does, y'all are greatly appreciated, because y'all help us to be able to keep everything going in the background. And I saw someone say, why don't you do low rent? We are about as low rent as we can get. The basement is as low as the rent gets. If we move out, the rent is significantly higher everywhere in the city. If we move anywhere where the rent's low, it's probably going to be a good chance that the internet doesn't exist. And on top of that, we can't really run these streams in an apartment, we found out, because the noise is so loud it ends up driving the neighbors crazy. So this is really this is where we have to be. We can't really, make things less expensive, because they're already as least as expensive as they can be. But nevertheless, I do thank y'all for the support, because y'all help us to be able to pay those bills and be able to do this as a full-time job every time, every day. And so with that, thank you so much once again, and let's get a live chat.
All right, and the live chat question is going to go to Jeff Omart, who says, have they added jobs / increased production at the Javelin plant?
From what I've heard, they possibly have, and I think their assembly line has started to become streamlined. A lot of line being used there, but it has been streamlined so that way they can produce even more Javelin missiles at a faster rate. So from what I understand, the answer to that question would be yes. But with that, hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one. But thank you so much once again, Hal Rose, for sponsoring that live chat.
Indeed, indeed. And our next one goes to Mace, LSA, longtime channel viewer. And it's good to see once again Mace. He puts in a $20 donation, and he says, Bayraktar.
Bayraktar. And I gotta thank you so much for the support, Mace of the LSA. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to keep this channel running, to be able to go Slava Ukraini and long live the least Pangami. And so with it, thank you so much once again for the support and helping the channel to keep running. And with it, I hope that this addressed it fairly well. And thank you so much once again for the support. And with it, we are on to the last one of this segment, and then we are moving on into the Frontline news.
All right, and the last one of the segment goes to Renee Love, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Renee, for that support. She says, treat yourself.
Treat yourself. And thank you, Renee. I will. Well, I don't really know how. Like, I guess food? Food's a good way to treat oneself.
Yeah, food. That works.
What could we buy with $20?
Beef jerky.
Beef jerky? Let's see. I'm trying to think. Yeah, we could get beef jerky. We could get pulled pork sandwiches. Oh, that would be good.
Oh, pulled orc.
Yes. Yes. Pulled pork, that would be very nice. But still, thank you so much for the support, Renee Love. And thank you for saying treat yourself, because thanks to folks like you who help this thing to keep on running, we are able to be on air. I don't know why I'm stuttering so hard these days. I'm sorry about that, everyone. But still, thank you so much once again, Renee. I hope that does address that well. And we are now moving on out of this question segment and on into the frontline news. Starting off near the area of Kupiansk, where we got to see a Ukrainian soldier eating a bowl while they were moving a D-30. And my man out here with the entire crock pot. He's eating it.
The Ukrainians love to play around with food like this. No, hold up a minute. That dude just put that in his mouth with it steaming hot like that. He was dedicated for this video.
Doing it for the vine.
His mouth's gonna be burning after that. I can't taste anymore. My taste buds are gonna bleed. Look at him. He's trying to play it off.
Oh, wait a minute. Was that a T-64BV? Look, yo, an old Soviet T-64BV. In reality, that's most likely a Ukrainian tank, because the Ukrainians mostly use T-64BVs. But it looks like it may be recoverable. It doesn't look entirely knocked out. Though you still see him eating his hot food as they're moving to their next pre-designated firing spot. And sharing it, in fact. He's sharing it at the end of the clip. Doing it for the vine. But moving on from that, and on into our next bit of news, we got to see a little bit further down the lines in the Kremenna Forest, a Russian perspective of the ongoing battle here. Once again, the Russians are continuing to try and push out of the Kremenna Forest and towards the town of Torske. It appears that they have not been successful at all and have not been able to take any ground, but we did get to see the heavy fighting occurring in the area today from the Russian perspective. Here's the clip. Hear a little sporadic firing going through the woods. We hear more firefighting going on. It appears that this trench may not be directly on the front lines, but maybe about 100 yards behind it. We hear the explosion of some, what may be cluster bombs in the woods, and we can also see the smoke rising from it. And that's the end of the clip, but just giving us a general perspective of what the sounds and views of the firefights are like right now in the Kremenna Forest. We also saw the Ukrainians moving up a BMP-2 laden with infantry, most likely to start reinforcing some Ukrainian positions on this part of the Kremenna Forest line. And there it goes. Look at it. So beautiful. So shiny. Very nice.
This could have the potential for a Tony situation. I kind of see it.
Kind of. But
these guys are weighing that thing down.
But it looks like they got it under control for the most part.
Put it in reverse, Terry.
I mean, put in reverse, Terry. But moving on from that, we're now getting on into our next clip, a little bit further down and into the Bakhmut area near Klishkivka, where we saw that a close call that happened before the video started left the Ukrainians with a little bit of adrenaline in them. Here's the clip.
Контуження, але здорові, да. Похуярили нас, блядь. Чуть-чуть. Влігався, да. Чуть-чуть, блядь, да. Нема нічого, одні тряпки висять. Чуть-чуть. Вся їда, що у нас є, хліб і трохи альонки, блядь. І бутилку. Кругу пустили. Але, блядь, добрий настрій, гумор, все добре у нас. Туди трошечки покажемо, як то воно є. Там було вже красиво убрано. Да. Ми питалися обрати все. Все буде добре.
And that's the end of the clip right there, but nice to see the Ukrainians weathering the explosion that took off the roof of their dugout right there as best as they can, and good to see that they're trying to keep their spirits up even in very tough situations like that. Beyond that, however, we didn't really see any frontline changes in this entire northern area of the Ukrainian front lines over the past 24 hours. As you can see right there were no changes at all. But nevertheless, the Ukrainians still hold the lines and are inflicting massive losses on Russian forces that are attempting to advance. Moving on to our next bit of news, we also got to see some Western volunteers talk about the situation in the Donbass on United 24. Once again, another clip brought by United 24. But here's the clip, and let's hear what they got to say.
We already approached the topic of Donbass. So as we can see from report, the Bakhmut direction still remains one of the most difficult and the hottest direction.
1 second. Let me make sure. Let me take this off screen and go check this real quick, because saying that the Bakhmut sector is hot. Oh, this is from 14 hours ago, so this is as recent as it gets. Just had to make sure, but let's get back to the clip.
Of the Eastern Front. What do you guys feel? How is the situation developing there? What is your impression?
Well, I think it's just how it's been recently in most areas, where it's slowly turning into, again, trench warfare due to the winter. But this time it's going to be with a lot more drones. So you need men in the trenches to hold the position, but then they're just going to be flying drones back and forth at each other the whole time.
Yeah.
It's the new age of warfare.
And Damian, what's your evaluation, I would say?
Oh, at the moment it looks pretty much neither side can advance, substantially. So pretty much it looks like the Russians are attacking everywhere just to see where the weak spots are at. Obviously, they're concentrating in Avdiivka at the moment. Tough place. The environment, the terrain here in Donbass is just, it's hard for offense and defense.
So we see now that the Russians have been more active recently. It started with the Kupiansk direction again in summer, now Avdiivka, and especially I would like to concentrate now on Avdiivka, because we know it's been very brutal in there and both sides are losing a lot of people. I'm not even talking machinery. So how do you guys, what do you guys think of the current situation down there? Maybe you know someone who's there, because I know you guys haven't been.
I think the Russians are just trying to take as much ground as possible before the winter, so that means they have the opportunity to dig in before the ground gets too hard.
So that's for like the tactical, I guess, importance. But what do you guys think is the strategic meaning for Russians to take this part of the front line?
They're just trying to get as much ground as possible, because Ukraine have put a lot of their resources a lot further south. And so the Russians have seen that as an opportunity to move in these more northern directions and primarily knock out as much Western equipment as possible. So that means they feel more safe and secure, and it gives them more of a motivation to advance.
Avdiivka is actually a pretty strategic area. It's one of the only bulges in the Russian line. You have that bulge there. For Ukrainians, it's the gateway to Donetsk, the city. As you can see, right after Avdiivka, you have a lot of train railways, you have a few more villages, bigger villages, and then you have the city. For Russians, they want to push Ukraine out of this pocket so that they can give more of a buffer zone to Donetsk and get our artillery and our mortars out of that area, try to push them back further.
I would agree also. And my question would be, what do you think Ukraine could have done better to maybe be better prepared for this assault?
Well, it's hard to say in hindsight, you know. Avdiivka has been under Ukrainian control for a while. We all know that it's been fortified since, what, 2014, 15? It's a long front line. We can't defend every single place, but I really can't say what they could do better there. They're doing their best with what they have right now.
And with that, that is the end of that little statement by those two Ukrainian soldiers. But once again, it appears that there's a consensus that's starting to come out that this isn't going to be a highly mobile war anymore. This is going to start becoming a very trench-regulated war where there's not going to be a lot of frontline movements in major fashion like we saw in the first year of the war. And from what I can tell, that does seem once again to start being more accurate than it was in the past. And of course, I have to say this, and the reason why I say this is because a moment ago, when we were talking about, you know, is Russian propaganda even effective or not? And I said, no, not at all. But one thing that is certainly tearing down Ukraine's support is how pro-Ukrainians are fighting amongst each other and trying to call each other pro-Russians to put themselves ahead. That is the reason why I have to give this disclaimer before we even make a comment like this. Because there are a lot of people out there who go, oh, well, what about the truth? Let's all give everyone the truth. And then sometimes when we give the truth, and the truth isn't always going to be the best thing, sometimes it might be something that doesn't sound perfect, then they want to attack people who do that. And of course, you know, some of y'all may have heard about the latest drama in that regard. And so I, of course, have to give the disclaimer to all of y'all that we are pro-Ukrainian through and through. For 2 entire years of this war, 22 months nearly, 24 months will be 2 straight years. For 22 months, we have run almost daily, 6 days a week, covering this news without question. Huge supporters of Ukraine. Every single Sunday, we run a fundraiser, and this community has raised nearly $1.3 million at this point to support nonprofits that have been operating over there. I think our track record of being pro-Ukraine is without question, and anyone who tries to throw around the idea that this channel and its supporters aren't pro-Ukrainian are simply doing that just to try and put the community down, to try and get themselves ahead in a very selfish way. But one thing I always told y'all at the beginning, and one thing I'll always tell y'all now, is that while we are pro-Ukrainian, our frontline analysis is unbiased, and it will always be unbiased. And I think that we are going to see that this war becomes a longer war, and it's going to be one where we see that there's not a lot of frontline changes beyond this point. There will be huge battles with huge losses, mostly for the attacker. Whoever is on the offensive, it will probably incur some pretty significant losses. But this war will probably drag on for at least another 2 years at this point before it ever ends. That's one thing I'm getting fairly certain about at this point. And we're even seeing that international Legion volunteers, like in that interview, are saying that. Zaluzhny is starting to say that. General Secretary Stoltenberg is saying that in NATO. We're also seeing that that's starting to become a pretty prevalent statement in most spheres. The only one I'm not seeing that seeing these statements becoming common in is the pro-Ukraine sphere on YouTube. And I feel like that's a great disservice because a lot of y'all are expecting, because of many of these statements made by other people, that this war is going to be over by next year, sometime around March or April, because that seems to be what a lot of people are saying out there, is that the war is going to be over next year during March and April. I don't think that's true. And when March and April comes around, a lot of people are going to start asking the question because of what a lot of these folks are saying. Why isn't the war over? It's March and April now, and it doesn't look like the war is going to be over anytime soon. And that's something that I don't think is a good thing. I think that's going to turn a lot of people off of supporting Ukraine if you flat out lie to people about how much longer this war is going to last. So I think it's much better to be honest and say it's probably going to end up being a longer war, so that way people can get it in their minds that we need to be in this for the long run. This isn't going to be a short little thing where in a few more months it's going to be over. I need to be ready to just pay attention to this for 2 years or so, because that's how much longer it will take. But that's my opinion on it. And once again, it looks like a lot of people out there, in soldiers fighting in the field, like those 2 International Legion soldiers, are starting to back that up. And, you know, and this is another thing I have to say real quick on that, is that some people will say, and this, I know this is about what's about to be said, because if anyone ever says something about what we have to say on our channel, which really ought to be no one else's business, but nevertheless, everyone's business is, well, our business is everyone's business, apparently. Someone's going to say, well, yeah, but, you know, the enforcer has never been in the military. He's just a college kid. He's only 21. What does he know? He's an idiot. Well, we're going exactly right now off of what 2 International Legion volunteers just said that have actually been fighting on the front lines, as compared to other people who haven't fought on the front lines in Ukraine either. So I would take their statements that it's probably going to start becoming a lengthy war involving a lot of trench warfare to be very truthful statements and very accurate, considering that they just came off the front lines and then conducted that interview. But moving on from that and down into the Avdiivka area, we did see that the Ukrainians were very successful today again at mounting a defensive of the city. Over the past 24 hours, we haven't really seen a lot of frontline changes at all in the area of Avdiivka, and it does appear that the Ukrainians have been holding on quite strongly. There has been a minor Russian advance across the railroad berm into the village of Stopove, but it doesn't appear to be that major, and especially considering that it took 1,180 losses for that to be one of the few places that they've been moving forward, it doesn't really seem that severe. Also, on top of that, it's so far away from the Avdiivka coke plant that it isn't really compromising the frontline positions that are very well placed inside of the coke plant. So moving on to our first clip, we got to see a Ukrainian sniper from the 110th Mechanized Brigade hitting some Russian soldiers. Cool symbol, I like that one. And we can see him popping off some shots. I gotta say, whenever I see these scopes, I always want one, but they're like thousands of dollars. Way out of my league.
Excuse me, sir. Could I please have one?
Excuse me, sir. Can I have a thermal scope?
And then King Charles said, no.
Me and my beautiful wife Camilla will have to shoot down your request for a drone. I mean a thermal scope.
No, you poor.
What the hell? Whoa!
What the hell
What's
is
going
this?
on in
These
Dubai?
Ukrainians be wild.
Dang, they be
Man.
wild. Goodness gracious. I gotta
They
tell
got
you.
their strap.
Man, I mean, well, they do got the strap. Goodness gracious. Precision is our decision. What a motto.
Man, Go ahead. What were you about to say?
I gotta say, Matthew, when it comes to the bullet mass, they really do have it down, you know?
Yeah, this is also like that GTA loading screen. Whenever this comes on and you're like trying to make sure nobody sees you, like you're like just like hurry up, switch.
Oh man, dude, I've never seen a brigade patch look like this before. This is a little new. But anyways, now that we've gotten enough of this, I'm sure we're about to see some absolute. Matthew, you know what? You know Star Trek. It's this festival. That's what it's going to start turning into in the live chat. People are going to be like, it's the festival. But anyways, that's the end of that clip. Pretty interesting to see.
This is the Platinum Jubilee in the live chat.
AF Kaplan said, I wonder if Zelensky has this patch in his collection. Well, I don't know. I mean, he does have a wife, you know. I don't know. But anyways, moving on to Kamyanka, we also got to see some Russian soldiers getting hit in this direction as well. And Del Alatica said, is this Romania? It's close. It's very close. But... Oh. That's it. Oh. But we can see the Ukrainians dropping a nade and kabooey. Oh.
Ow. Writing like a comic book.
Oh, wait a minute. Tak tochno. I think that means like I'm wounded or something. He's like, screw you, man.
I can't move. Bye-bye.
Help, I've fallen and I can't get up. Screw you, man. But anyways, that's the end of that clip. And as we all know, it was nice to see. And it's good to see that the Ukrainians are once again using their drones very effectively. We're now going to be moving on from that and on into our next clip. And also, by the way, y'all, we've gotten, well, at that moment when I was seeing it, we had gotten up to 3,333 likes. A very high number. Incredibly high, I must say. But moving on from that and into our next clip, we also got to see a Ukrainian Uragan hitting some Russian positions down on the southern side of Avdiivka. And we can see the MLRS fire coming in hot. And now we can see the smoke traveling over the field from those grad hits.
Oh my. This looks like a hellscape.
Oh my.
Oh.
Oh. It's dreadful. Oh. And Barry Badgernat said, what type of soldiers are under there? Dead ones. Under that barrage? Most likely dead ones. But moving on from that little clip and on to our next one. We also got to see the Ukrainians going through and making sure to destroy some Russian abandoned vehicles near the front line. Apparently the Ukrainians weren't able to recover these, and after seeing that they were sitting on the front lines for a while, they decided it would be better to just destroy them completely than possibly let them fall back into the hands of Russian forces. And we see our first bomblet landing near the MTLB. We can see the next one landing on top of the MTLB.
Threw a piece of crap off of it.
And we see that one hitting the back of an MTLB, and another one hitting the back of the MTLB, and a fire has started. Burn, baby, burn. Oh, look at that. It's toasty.
The Russians are subtly thanking the Ukrainians for this. We get to watch the fire. Thank you, Ukrainian.
Man, Russians being the arsonists they are, they're probably going, oh, blood, fire. Oh, it's very nice.
Yeah, the Russians are the stupid type of arsonists, though. They're the type that like to walk up to the fire and like try to poke their finger in it, like, how hot is it? And then they get burned and they're like, oh, God.
Probably so, I would have to say. But we did. We are now on to the next one. Near Bisky. And I have to tell y'all, whenever I get around this area, I get pissed off. I'm just telling you. But anyways, we got to see the Ukrainians hitting more Russian forces. And Susan Lowell said, cluster bombs? Maybe. So I wouldn't doubt it. But actually, that was a grad strike. We know that because the cluster bombs actually airburst, and then the clusters hit the ground, and they explode in like a donut-shaped pattern. And it's very distinguishable from other kinds of explosives. What we saw there was clearly a BM-27 grad strike.
It's a cluster something.
It is. That I can't disagree with. But we can see here the drone. Blink! Hitting the tank. And then we can see the next one getting ready to hit the tank too. This one says angle.
Angular. Oh, that tank tried to swerve. A little cheeky fella.
Dude, that tank went skirt, and it still got hit. And then we can see them hitting an already burning BTR, and that's the end of the clip. And Chris said, oh, okay. Oh, okay. But anyways, moving on from that little bit of news, and on into our next one. On to the next one. We got to see if Volodar, near Volodymyrivka, that some Russian vehicles, Российские автомобили, or Российские техника, were chased down by some FPV drone. The cool mixtape. And there it is, the 72nd Okrema Mechanized Brigade, and then something about Zaporizhia. Zaporizhia front. Sorry, everyone. They actually gave all the identifiers right there. But anyways, you see their drone flying on in? Oh, man, look at that. Have you ever seen a Russian motorcycle get hit by a drone before? Well, you just did. Once as it splatters the oil across the road and sends it up into a sky-high pile of flames. This thing is absolutely toasting and roasting. You know what's really about to be roasting? These Russian mines. Watch as they sit down inside of their little Scooby-Doo van and go, like, zoink, Scoob. I think that thing's coming right for us. And then Scooby says, Rut-row, Raggy, 6 feet under. Kaboom. That Russian right there is taking a nap. Not one of his own will, but he's taking a nap nevertheless.
I think I saw some ghosts off in the left corner, too. They went scurrying off, but they're like just figures in the night.
check it out as we watched them scurry away. They went, ooh. I can't do that in the Sam Elliott voice or Pam Elliott voice, but there they go.
Pam Elliott.
Yeah, that's my ripoff. Sam Elliott is Pam Elliott, so that way it gets around, you know. But anyways, that's the end of the little clip right there. Nice to see. And we're now moving on from the area of Volhydar, and we're moving on towards the area of, specifically, Robotny. But before we get there, did y'all know that some little slightly high amounts of radiation were detected in Mariupol? Did ya? Did you know? We're hearing about it.
I'm hearing.
The reported radiation numbers from Mariupol indicate elevated but not unsafe levels. It's like a chest x-ray. At this moment, we still cannot confirm Ukraine claims regarding radiation at Mariupol. But from what we heard, the authorities say that it's 3.6 Rontgen, not great, not terrible, but from what I've been told by the experts, it's very similar to that of a chest x-ray, completely harmless. Moving on from that news inside of Mariupol and towards Verbove, we got to see the muddy fields surrounding this small fledgling village out on the Zaporizhian frontier.
Ah, nice and slushy.
Man, this is the way I like my ices, slushy. But with
That'd be looking nasty.
I gotta say, Matthew, this stuff, it has the consistency of a, what does it have the consistency of? It has the consistency of the sludge inside of a Paris sewer. It is pretty bad looking. It's probably going to be pretty tough for vehicles to get through, I'd assume. But moving on from that and into our next clip, we also saw a pretty amazing last stand of 2 Ukrainian soldiers in the area of Novoprokopivka. Both of them would survive. They ended up surrendering to the VDV forces that were attacking, but these 2 Ukrainian soldiers held off a VDV assault for quite a while before giving up, and it was an impressive feat to watch. Of course, they may have been captured, but they certainly did give the VDV a run for its money. We're going to have to mute the documentary music with the narration over it. But there goes the VDV right there. Hey ho, is off to work we go. Diddle it, diddle it, hey ho, hey ho. Man, this guy's got Santa's sack on or something up here. He's got the whole washing machine in that thing.
Here we can see.
Is that you, Santa Claus?
Zip zap zoomity bop.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, by the way. It took me a second to try to, like, summon up that voice, so that's why it took a second.
Oh, it's okay. I don't even remember what I was going to say anymore. But we can see them wandering around. And we can now see the Ukrainians returning fire against the VDV from their trenches right here, as it appears that some kind of a thermite grenade is burning on the left side. These 2 Ukrainian soldiers are about to hold up this entire VDV unit for about the next 3 whole minutes. So 2 Ukrainian soldiers held up an entire squad of the VDV on their own for 3 minutes with no support. When you see the Ukrainian soldiers being blasted by RPGs, but only shuddering a little bit and then getting right back up to continue laying down fire and keeping the VDV from advancing directly onto him at this point. When you see a Russian toss a grenade, which ends up exploding in the trench, but it appears that both of the Ukrainian soldiers aren't wounded and continue to return fire against the VDV. We now see the Russian soldier trying to advance onto the trench and firing into it, but it appears that both of the Ukrainians are hunkering low and trying to weather out the fire. We now see another grenade explode near the Ukrainian soldier, but the Ukrainian soldier is still unfazed. And we see him right there. And we see the VDV soldier spraying down that bunker and now moving forward to the Ukrainian soldier. And we now see the rest of the VDV unit moving up to the trench. We now see the VDV hanging out over the outpost, and we now see the 2 Ukrainian soldiers that mounted this defensive for nearly 3 minutes against an entire VDV squad. Once again, these soldiers, from what we understand, are a part of one of the normal Ukrainian territorial defense forces, so practically militia, held up the VDV, one of Russia's most elite units, according to what the Russians say, held them up for 3 straight minutes, just the both of them on their own. But luckily, hopefully, luckily, they didn't lose their lives. And nevertheless, they still held a position long enough, probably for other Ukrainian forces, to mount a defensive further behind this position. We now see them taking the Ukrainian prisoners of war away. And while the Russians act like this is a victory, you have to think about it. They held up the VDV, the National Guard of Ukraine pretty much held up the VDV for 3 minutes, 2 of them against nearly 7. Kind of seems like it's a little bit of a Ukrainian victory. While they did end up surrendering, they held up the most elite unit in the Russian military, except for the Spetsnaz, for 3 straight minutes. Moving on from that and into our next bit of news near the area of Rubinivka, and this also has to do a good bit with the VDV, is that we have heard from the British Ministry of Defense that the Russians are planning on raising a brand new division of the VDV. Russians' airborne forces, the VDV, has likely started deploying the newly formed 104th Guards Airborne Division, the 104th GAD, in Ukraine for the first time. This division is probably assembling in the Kherson Oblast. In August of 2023, the Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu announced plans to re-establish 104 GAD, which was previously downsized to a smaller brigade-sized formation in 1998. Its subordinate units likely include the 337th Regiment, an additional maneuver regiment, and the 52nd Artillery Brigade. With the addition of the 104th GAD, the number of divisions in the VDV's order of battle will increase to 5. The division will likely be poorly trained and is unlikely to meet the erstwhile elite standards of the VDV. It will almost certainly receive close scrutiny from the Russian general responsible for Kherson, General Colonel Mikhail Teplinsky. His routine role is overall commander of the VDV. And so we can see right there, 1, divisions do exist in the Russian army, because that was something that was contended earlier in the stream. Divisions do exist according to the British Ministry of Defense. And second, it appears that the Russians are trying to bring in a new division of the VDV into Kherson, most likely to try and counter what the Ukrainians are doing there. They most likely will not be successful because, once again, the unit is completely green, lacking any training, and probably a decent amount of equipment. It's probably more so of a Russian reserve unit, but has the name VDV stuck onto it just in case it adds any fear factor. But moving on from that and into our next bit of news, we also got to see that another TOS system of the Russian army was destroyed today, which was very nice to see. Oh, we're going to be muting that, but we can see the TOS down there on the move. And we can see it swerving out of control.
Were those guys running from the TOS?
I think so. I think they were. They're like, get out of here. But we now see the crew running from the TOS after it's been hit. Oh my lord! No wonder the crew was running. That thing went nuclear. Silence ensues.
Not much to say on that.
I was thinking there was going to be something said, but you know, Anyways, we can see it's exploded. Wonderful to see. With that, we're now going to be moving on from that clip and on into our next one, where we also got to see some pictures of an interesting little thing called a Bandwagen, which is an amphibious carrier vehicle being used near the Dnieper River. From what the caption is saying, this is being used by the 38th Marine Brigade of the Ukrainian Naval Infantry, and it's being used specifically for medical evacuation. So we can see right here, traveling around, moving out the wounded, and of course, coming back from transiting the river. Really neat to see that they are getting some vehicles across, at least the amphibious kind, like this Bandwagen, but it doesn't really appear that there's a lot of Bandwagens or any kind of amphibious vehicles that are being used incredibly heavily in the Kherson area. Moving on down into the area, pretty much at Primorsk or Skidovsk, we also got to see a Buk anti-air system being destroyed nearly 50 miles behind the lines, almost at the very farthest range of the HIMARS system.
Man, is that the throat singing or whatever they call it?
I think that's like a didgeridoo from Australia. But we can see the missile come in, hitting the Buk and setting the ammunition on fire, burning it up.
A didgeridoo.
And with that, that's the end of the clip. Very nice to see and wonderful to know that the Ukrainians were once again able to destroy another impressive SAM system. Moving on from that, there was a question in the live chat that I'd like to answer. Renee Love said, did someone question your allegiance to Ukraine? No. In the past, our allegiance to Ukraine has been questioned for stupid reasons, to be quite honest. Because we have no problem getting in arguments with other people who want to say stupid stuff to us, and then they want to say because of their personal disagreement that we're not pro-Ukraine because we don't agree with them, and then people take that and run with it. Or, you know, our dad is a successful attorney, therefore these kids don't deserve anyone's attention, and they must be pro-Russian. Obviously, because if your dad is successful as a business person or an attorney or whatever, then obviously you can't support Ukraine. Apparently you can only be poor and support Ukraine, which is a little stupid. But we've been attacked for being pro-Russian several times on completely baseless claims. But what's really making me mention that tonight is I'm starting to see that that's becoming a normal trend for a particular group to try and attack other pro-Ukraine supporters as being pro-Russians, to try and elevate themselves in the community, and in the process split it into two and tear down others to do it. And it's a very concerning thing to see. It's very concerning to me. And while it doesn't actually affect us, one thing I know is that through this endless fighting that's now being caused with anyone and everyone at this point, and it seems as though it has no basis, because from what I understand and what I've been told by people, the specific person that's now at the gauntlet now has been pro-Ukraine almost through and through. A lot of people have even wanted them to be a guest on our show. And now they're being attacked for being a pro-Russian when I haven't seen anything that really indicates that they're pro-Russian, you know, at all. And seeing that and knowing that we also went through that too, it's starting to become very clear to me that a lot of people who cover the Ukraine war don't really care about Ukraine. They only care about using it as a vehicle to propel themselves forward and virtue signal. Because attacking people who have been supporting Ukraine for 2 years straight, like this, you know, particular person has, it's wrong. It's completely wrong. It's like, for example, you know, if you have been a loyal employee of your company for years and you've been one of the best employees that they ever had, and then at the end of 20 years working for them, you make a little slip up, like there's maybe a typographical error in an Excel spreadsheet, and because of that they bash you and say you're the worst employee ever, you sucked, you were the lowest performing, and they fire you. That's almost like what's going on here. It's wrong, it's messed up, that kind of stuff needs to end. And I hope that all of y'all agree with me, because it seems as though this is starting to become a normal trend now for people to try and attack others to propel themselves forward in the community, and then people blindly will back the stuff up, and it's just wrong. It's wrong every single step of the way, and some of the people who are even kind of joining in are giving a really bad look to Ukraine, because it's like, if you want Ukraine to be supported further on in the future, it's probably not good for some of these people who are Ukrainians to hop in and start jabbing people who have been pro-Ukrainian for 2 years, because that's how you end up losing supporters, is by going out and lashing out at people who have been more than happy to back up Ukraine and support them for 2 straight years. That's my opinion on it. So I hope that it addresses that well, Renee. We're not the ones being attacked, but we've been seeing things that have been greatly concerning us out there, and I'm not liking the look of how things are starting to pan out anymore at all. But with that, we're now moving on to Kyiv to cover the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 645 of the war. And so,
I want speech. Give me speech.
It's the same speech as yesterday. Oh my lord! I forgot. He's actually up in the Kupiansk area right now speaking to troops, so that's probably why we don't have an address. So with that is the end of the address from Zelensky, and we're now moving on into part 2. The fun part. You know why? Because we get to talk to all of y'all, and that's one of my favorite times of the night. And so, Matthew, what do you got?
All right, so let's move into our final poll and question segment. And our first poll says, do you like the exclusive coverage of Ukraine news only and the exclusion of Israeli war news? 38% said yes, just Ukraine news is preferable. 31% said no, I want both types of news. 26% said only cover the big Israeli news. And 5% said unsure. And on this one, I have to say, it looks like most of the people want some type of Israeli news included. And we can always try to scour for the Israeli news. It was a little bit low today, but I'm personally agreeing with the majority here. I think that I would like to see some type of Israeli news in here, along with the Ukrainian news as well. I think that's a good balanced coverage. And if YouTube decides to come down on us for that, I say just be damned with it. But Enforcer, what say you?
I say that I would like to see some Israeli news coverage. It's not been cut out. Really quickly to explain that, because I know some people are going to start saying that we just cut it out because we're scared of YouTube. There's a ceasefire going on right now, so there's not really any war news coming out because there's not a war going on right now. And that will be the case for the next 24 hours. So we will be including it once the news comes back, but I would have to agree that with the 26% of y'all or so that said only cover the big news, because trying to cover a street-to-street analysis of what's going on in Gaza is actually incredibly difficult to do, and we kind of just end up getting an amalgamation of clips to show y'all. So I think that will probably be a better way to go about it once that news segment is able to return, once things start to happen there again, and that's probably the way we are going to cover it. I'm glad that a lot of y'all do enjoy that, though, and I've heard that some of y'all have actually been requesting for us to talk about the ongoing possible conflict that's beginning in South America. I believe it's in between Venezuela and Guyana, and we will possibly try and cover that if y'all show enough interest in it, or maybe make a separate video about it once the exams are over. But with that, I hope that does address that well. We don't want to get too much on our plate, though, because while I'm talking about expanding into covering even more in different kinds of news, we also have plans of covering well, not covering, but reviewing guns and talking about guns, which is a big part of war and conflict, and it's the usual thing that you'll see massive numbers of, is small arms everywhere. We have been, well, really I have been, just going ham, trying to get stuff to collect and show. Mostly historical stuff that will have some kind of historical precedent, because you all know I'm a big fan of history, and I want to make sure that I am actually able to talk about what I know, which is the historical aspect of firearms, the development, stuff like that. And to tell y'all something really neat, because, of course, I'm always trying to figure out how to do the coolest thing in the background, there is one thing, there's one gun that I got, and we ended up getting, and also, Matthew, I just saw that right there, that's why I got distracted, but we ended up getting something that is exceptionally rare to the point I won't even be able to shoot it on a gun review. I'll just be able to tell y'all about it and show it to y'all. Matthew knows what it is. I showed it to him today, and it is honestly one of the magnum opuses of the collection that we've been able to make to get ready to gun review. 2 of them will not be able to ever be fired at all, and this is one of them. It is a Colt 1903 from 1926 that has been unfired, and it's in its original factory box from 1926. The chances of finding one of those in that kind of condition is 1 in a million at this point. They're very tough to find. We were lucky to find one. I was able to get it. and it's mint. It's incredibly cool to see, and I think it would be really cool to talk to y'all about the amazing history, not just of the 1903 pistol, which is a very undersung pistol in the history of small arms here in the United States, but not only that, it is also a part of John Browning's evolution to the famous 1911 pistol that many of y'all would know. I wish I had a picture of to show this, show to y'all of this thing. Let me see if I can pull it up, Colt 1903 in box. I'm just trying to find pictures of that. And so, let me see if I can find one that looks a lot like the one we were able to grab. Let's see, this looks like... Dang, there's actually a good, decent amount of pictures, but they're all in different condition. Like, some of them are just dog water condition, others are better. So, this is about the closest picture I'll be able to find to the one that we were able to get. This is it. That's the Colt 1903. Notice it does have a lot of similarities to the 1911 in its design, especially the front part of the slide up here. It's almost identical in appearance. It's a lot smaller, though, and we will show that when we're able to, make a video on this thing. But this is also the original box. This one may be a reproduction or it may be original. I can't really tell. And this one's also in 1908, so it's in 380 instead of 32 ACP. Honestly, I think 32 ACP is better for this pistol, but I'll get into that in the gun review. But this is an amazing little pistol, and it's neat to know that we were able to get one. Interestingly enough, this thing was sold, like the factory that made these pistols is in Hartford, Connecticut. That's where Colt's factory was at the time. And this pistol was sold in New Haven, Connecticut. Just right down the street, pretty much. I think it's like 20 miles or 30 miles away. So it practically didn't even leave the area of the Colt factory. It just kind of got transported away to a little store, a hardware store in New Haven, and then it was sold there. And then whoever had it, they didn't shoot it ever because it was proven with the paperwork that this thing has been unfired its entire lifespan. Not a single bullet has been put through it, rather than the factory test that all Colt guns went through at the time. And then it was put in that box. They kept it in mint condition all the way up until today. And then we were able to get our hands on it, and I intend on never shooting it. It's going to be a collector's item. It's going to stay in the condition it is. And whenever I get guns that are that rare or in that good condition, I'm not a big fan of shooting them. I'm a big fan of preserving them, so that way they will exist long into the future. Because I saw a video out there, and I don't know if any of y'all have found it, but it was a guy who actually inherited a 1903, much in the condition of this one. It was actually a U.S. property 1903, and the guy ended up butchering it by putting like a paint job on it and like a red dot and a rail on top of the slide, and I just was reeling because it was a U.S. property 1903 that was issued in World War II, which was incredibly rare, by the way, for them to issue any of those in World War II. It never had been fired. It was in great condition, had been well kept. And then it was butchered. And I just hate that because it's such a loss of history when guns like these are, vandalized kind of like that. But over time, they will be. And my hope is that when I'm 80 or 90, I will be able to hand this thing over to a museum, and it'll be able to sit in a museum in its mint, perfect, original factory condition and sit there. But with that, hope that does address that well. That's what we're working on with the gun reviews. So, we will, of course, get around to that eventually. But I did want to give a quick shout out, by the way. This is something that Matthew wanted to tell me to do because it's pretty appropriate. We would like to give a shout out to the specific channel that we've been talking about kind of vaguely tonight that has been getting attacked wrongfully for no reason. It's Speak the Truth. Many of y'all have recommended us to have them on our show as a guest before. We, don't really have guests on, so we've never really reached out to them, and they've never really reached out to us to be a guest. But we wanted to give them a shout out because we have gone through the exact same thing they're going through, which is completely baseless, and it's a flat-out lie meant to try and destroy the reputation of a channel, and I do not stand for that one bit. The whole reason it seems that that's happening at the moment is so that way some people can virtue signal and try and make themselves look better, and at the same time tear down someone who's been a supporter of Ukraine for an incredibly long time. I've seen the clip that's apparently in controversy, and it was far blown out of context. The guy's concept of the Battle of Avdiivka is that Avdiivka may be besieged potentially, and that the Ukrainians may lose the city. And to be honest with y'all, I don't really see that at the moment. I think that if if that was to happen, it's probably going to be about 4 or 5 months from now, if anything, if it ever even did happen. But if that's his opinion, that's his opinion. That's his business. I can disagree with it, but people were trying to equate that to this guy trying to say that Ukraine has lost the war, to try and blow it up out of proportion and have this guy attacked for something that he didn't even say and twist his words against him. And that's something that we've had done to us. And, you know, people ran with it and believed it. And if we are going to put our foot down for anything, I'm going to put my foot down on people attacking pro-Ukrainian YouTubers who have supported Ukraine for 22 months and continue to support them and continue to talk in pretty good standing about them in almost every single aspect and situation. I personally disagree with him on his input about Avdiivka. I don't think Avdiivka is going to fall soon. But that doesn't mean that because I disagree with him, this guy is now automatically a pro-Russian. That does not mean that. He's still a pro-Ukrainian. Many of y'all respect the guy because he's been a pro-Ukrainian, and I can see many of y'all saying words of praise about him right now. I mean, the guy has been through and through as pro-Ukrainian as anyone else, and the attack against this guy is completely unwarranted and uncalled for, and I don't agree with attacking people and trying to slander their reputation and their image just because you simply disagree with something they said and you want to tear down their channel to try and build yours. That's no way
Amen.
That's no way
the
to...
The guy's name is Speak the Truth, and he ought to keep speaking the truth. And also, I got to say myself, I hate to see it when people get attacked for absolutely no purpose whatsoever, except just out of a vendetta, basically. I don't really watch those guys a whole bunch, but I have seen a couple of clips, and it appears that like they've got pretty good content to me. And anyways, even if I didn't agree with it, they have the right to say what they want, because they're people just like us. So, you know, if they want to say something they want to say, then, you know, go ahead and say it. And, you know, if it seems to be pessimistic and it's not exactly, you know, going in Ukraine's favor, I wouldn't go as far as to say that they're pro-Russian because they're saying that. They're simply being realists. And I think that's more productive than being, you know, hopelessly optimistic.
And also another thing, like to the defense of Speak the Truth, much like us, because something that I don't think I told y'all is that last year alone, I personally donated nearly $10,000 to Ukraine through our Sunday fundraisers, giving $100 each time. It ended up equaling almost $10,000. Rob from Speak the Truth, who's the main host of the channel, has donated not just $10,000 in a year like we did last year, and I think I'm on track to do about $10,000 again this year. He's donated tens of thousands of dollars personally to nonprofits in Ukraine that have been helping out over there. And not only that, he's been donating for aid and equipment for soldiers. That's not something a pro-Russian does. You know, that's something that you wouldn't do if you supported the other side, is to spend tens of thousands of dollars supposedly supporting the side that you would hate. That makes no sense. And it's just so hard to even say words about it, because I know what we went through in the same situation, being blasted completely wrongfully for something that wasn't even true, and now this guy is going through the same thing and has the same people attacking him and everything, and it's just wrong. It's messed up beyond belief. And I don't back it up at all. I don't, like, there's nothing we can do rather than say we don't back it up at all. You know, and of course we're not telling y'all to go and brigade, because brigading is just classless, but it's despicable to see that the same thing's happening over and over and over. And instead of people, you know, like they say, everyone says, whoa, hey, easy now, we're all pro-Ukrainian. When this specific group wants to go out and attack someone, then everyone just backs them up, even though it's completely baseless, wrong to do. And on top of that, slandering someone's name about Ukraine when they have done more to support Ukraine than a lot of folks in the Ukraine war community really even have. But
right.
That's my opinion. That's my take. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next poll says, what do you believe is the source of the increased radiation in Mariupol? 35% said unsure, 32% said radiation leak at the nuke plant, 24% said Russia releasing radiation on purpose, and 10% said it's natural radiation and totally normal. And on this one, I'm a little bit unsure myself. I saw some people in the live chat saying that it could be radiation kicked up by the recent hurricane and the storm, and that seems like that might be a possibility. However, you know, it could be a radiation leak, maybe. It's just kind of too early to tell, because the radiation levels aren't dangerous. They're just increased higher than normal. So it's not enough to go on just to say exactly what's happening, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But Enforcer, what say you?
I think we'll probably just have to wait and see as well. Someone actually said that it may have possibly been tritium that was washed up along shore that's naturally occurring in the Sea of Azov that's creating these trace amounts of radiation. And that may be true. We don't really know at the moment, so that's why I'm going to have to say we'll have to wait and see if the actual cause of this radiation is tracked down. But with that, I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And we're moving on to our super chat questions. And our first one here is going to go to Mark, CV's Parabellum, who puts in a $95 donation. And Mark, I can't say all of that. I believe Latin. I can't really say that all that well, even though I'm in law school and we should be going over Latin. We really haven't, surprisingly enough. But anyways, thank you, Mark, for that support. And he says, trying to get around the Enforcer Matt filter. And what? You didn't say anything bad. What you mean?
Oh, and I gotta thank you so much for the support, Mark. CV Pacem Parabellum, maybe how that civis. I don't know. It's a Latin phrase, but I thank you for the support. And you got entirely around the filter. I don't even think there was anything to be filtered there, like Matthew said. But still, I gotta thank you for the support, Mark, and helping this channel to keep on running, because you make it possible for us to be here on air, so that way Matthew can try and filter some of the statements that are made sometimes that are a little questionable. But still, thank you so much once again, Mark, for the support, and thank you for thinking about this channel and helping us to keep running, so that way we can keep all of our operations running for the Lee Spring Army, making sure that our fundraisers are here, making sure that our nightly streams are here, and making sure that we're able to keep on trucking in the background with things like law school. And so with that, thank you so much once again. Thank you, Mark. Thank you. And I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Captain Kirk, who puts in a $20 donation and does not leave a comment. And we also have a 20 from Leah Me Mo channel. That's how it's said. It's a strange way or a strange spelling. I'm not sure how to say it, but sorry for butchering it. And a huge shout out to you both very much for that $20 support each, and with no comments to address. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I got to thank you so much, Captain Kirk. And also I got to thank you so much to Liam Amog's channel, both of you, for the support. Y'all didn't throw in comments, but your support does say a lot and helps us to continue to say a lot. I got to thank the entire Lee Spring Army that goes out of their way to help support this channel and help us to keep this thing running, because without y'all, it wouldn't be possible. We got to thank everyone who does support, both tonight and in the future and in the past, because y'all have made it possible for us to be here every single night. We don't have a Patreon. Well, we do have a Patreon, but it's for videos and we never plug it on the stream. But we don't have a Patreon. We don't have sponsors. We don't have ads. We have none of it. We run this thing as least monetized as possible. The only way we're monetized is through the viewers themselves, and if y'all decide to support us or not. And I got to thank y'all so much for making a conscious decision to support us and help us to keep this thing going. Some of y'all say that we are your favorite channel, and we wouldn't be able to keep your favorite channel running if it wasn't for you and your support. And so thank you to both of y'all so much once again. While y'all didn't leave a comment, y'all help us to make comments. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next super chat is going to go to Harvey the drummer, who puts in a $50 donation. And huge shout out to you, Harvey, for that support. And also, I saw you followed us on Twitter today, so thank you very much for that as well. He says, pump, pump. Get it, get it. The LSA drum corps is witted.
And thank you so much for the support, Harvey the drummer. And that's not a drum beat. I don't know what the hell that is. But anyways, thank you so much once again for support, Harvey the drummer. Why am I stuttering so badly tonight, Matthew? It's like I'm mentally not even really here. Like the wires aren't working.
It's that exam tomorrow, man. I'm telling you, I'm sitting over here like slowly. The reality of that exam coming up tomorrow is setting in. I'm getting slightly worried, but go ahead.
Man, well, I try not to be worried, because if I did, I'd probably, at this point, I would break from the stress. But anyways, I got to thank you so much for the support, Harvey, because the Lee Spring Army Drum Corps is with it, and they're jigging with it. And so, thank you so much once again for the mass amount of support, Harvey, because folks like you help us to keep this thing running. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Tommy Two Tokes, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Tommy, for that support. And he says, just in spite of JTX, who was a bot that got studented about halfway through the stream. He didn't last very long, but he did get a few things out. And Tommy Two Tokes says, Slav Ukraine, LSA.
And thank you so much for the support, Tommy Two Tokes, and helping this channel to keep on running. Because with folks like you, we are able to smite bots. bots hate us. There are people, would y'all believe this? There aren't just bots out there that harass this channel. There are actually people out there who wish Matthew and me were dead. Like, they actually wish death on us. And thanks to support like you, Tommy Two Tokes, you help us to spite these people every single waking hour of every single waking day, because we're able to get on here every 24 hours, and due to their sad, obsessive natures and, having no lives, they're able to see that we go live again, and we're running another show. And I gotta thank you so much for doing that, Tommy Two Tokes, because not only are you helping us to spite those bots, you're also helping us to spite the haters. And so with that...
Stay alive! Stay alive!
Staying alive! But anyways, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well, Tommy Two Tokes. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And also, I got to shout out Scott Moore in the live chat. He said, Enforcer Matt, I was in the Army for over 24 years. And thank you for your service, Scott. He says, I'm telling you that for two people that have never been in the military, you're doing a great job. And thank you, Scott.
Thank you,
there you
Scott.
go. That's all we needed.
That's all we needed. Mad respect, Scott. I got to thank you so much for that. You're not one of those folks out there gatekeeping. You're actually a very kind person and very encouraging as well. And I got to thank you so much for that, Scott, because we do enjoy the words of encouragement. And Matthew, we need to have the words of encouragement wall. We need to put these down on sticky notes and just start putting them up near our desk. So that way, whenever a bot comes in and says, man, I wish you were dead, we can look over at that and go, you wish. But anyways.
Man, I hadn't got to that point yet. I don't need the sticky board yet, but I'll probably get there eventually.
I'm telling you what, man. If the haters want to hate on us, man, all I'm saying is, why don't they come down here and tell us to our face? Most of them know where we live. Why not? That's all I'm saying.
Tell the ops to pull up.
Tell them to pull up.
No cap.
No cap. No, I'm not capping. And you'll see. None of them will. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well. And thank you so much once again for the kind words, Scott Moore. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to LSA Sergeant Figment, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Sarge. He says, sorry I'm late, working OT tonight, overtime. He says, being a history teacher is difficult. And dear Lord, I did not know you're a history teacher, and that is difficult. I can attest to that, because the history teacher in my high school got absolutely abused. And he says, teaching my students about Harper's Ferry tomorrow. Sarge wants one from the live chat. And keep it up, boys.
And thank you so much for the support, Sarge. And also, Harper's Ferry is a really interesting story. Are you talking about the Battle of Harper's Ferry or just the Harper's Ferry incident at the Arsenal? I would be interested to hear which one it is, because I think it's the one at the Arsenal in like the late 1840s, I believe, if I'm correct. But also, Matthew, did you know, let's see, there's Cumberland. Oh, my Lord, there it is. Harper's Ferry, it's right here. It's right at the literal border in between West Virginia, and Maryland. Here it is. And here's John Brown's fort. This is 1859. I got it 10 years off. It's not 1849. It's 1859, right before the Civil War started. But that's where John Brown held off his one-man stand. I believe it was against the National Guard of Virginia. That, man, I don't want to say any historical facts because I think I'm going to get them wrong right now at this moment. But still, incredibly cool to know that you're going to be teaching about that tomorrow. I hope you have a great deal of fun doing that. But being a history teacher is no cakewalk. I know that for sure. I have a history degree, and even in college, not having to be a teacher, sometimes history did get pretty tough, especially with the level of detail that you had to go through in some of the history courses. But still, hope you have the best of luck tomorrow, and I completely understand working overtime being a history teacher. History is a greatly underappreciated thing, and not only that, it's a very important thing to know because you can learn so much through history that you couldn't anywhere else. But with that, hope that does address that well, and thank you so much once again for being here with us tonight, even if it is late. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
Anytime I ever hear anyone say overtime hours, I think of that cringy country song that was out. You remember that one? The guy was like with the orange hair and stuff like that.
No, I don't even know what you're talking
overtime hours, bullshit pay.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Johnny Paycheck. Take this job and shit it. But
I'm talking about that one-hit wonder guy with orange hair who put that cringy song out and then just went away and disappeared into oblivion.
Man, I don't even know who the hell you're talking about. I'm not gonna lie, this is completely not ringing any bells for me.
Well, I guess if it doesn't ring your bell, I guess it doesn't. But anyways, with that being said, we're moving on to our next one, which goes to Rob Eisman, longtime channel legend. He puts in a $20 donation, and thank you, Rob, as always, for that support. And Rob says, hello to my fellow Ellis Warriors, and let's all send prayers to our fellow warrior and friend BC Skyman, and especially for his family as he travels to Ukraine to help. And please take a live one. And as always, run silent, run deep.
And thank you so much for the support, our in-house Lee Spring Army Submariner, for helping this channel to keep on running on board the USS George C. Marshall back in the day. Mad respect. And not only that, I do wish BC Skyman the best of luck. He is going to be going over to Ukraine here soon, and we all hope that he will remain safe and he'll be able to do what he's going to do there. Make sure, although it is a war over there in Ukraine, make sure to try and have a little bit of fun, keep things light, and, come back hopefully as good as you were when you left, and hopefully in one piece like you were when you left. But I got to thank you so much once again, Rob Eisman, for giving the best wishes and hoping that there will be some prayers sent BC Skyman's way, because I know one thing for certain: we will certainly be praying for BC Skyman to return back safely after his trip to Ukraine. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support, Rob Eisman, and thank you for being so kind to give BC Skyman a shout out and some well wishes. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to LSA Sergeant Figment once again, who puts in a $20 donation. And Sarge says this time, Matt, how was your day? And I will tell you, LSA Sergeant Figment, it was pretty good. Got to say, though, the anxiety of these exams has been putting me through the ringer for the last week, and also probably next week as well. So it's a little bit tiring, I must admit, but a pretty good day overall. And he says, Andrew, chin up about YouTube, and I know that the LSA will support you regardless of the circumstances. And I say we start an NCO Corps for the LSA, led by yours truly, Sarge. Jugga jugga, bliat.
And I thank you so much for the support, LSA Sergeant Figment. And we will start, we were thinking, I don't know if it's a good idea to give everyone like a behind the scenes of like the ideas I was having, but we were planning on having for the anniversary of the founding of the Lee Spring Army, which will be coming up in a few months, a lot of special stuff happened that night, really specifically with the Lee Spring Army in particular, like founding things about the Lee Spring Army, having a finalized flag design, maybe even coming up with like uniforms, at least in fiction, that could be put on posters or something like that. I think that would be pretty neat, so that way the Lee Spring Army really has like an identifiable identity. I think that would be really cool. And we are thinking about working towards that. We haven't really put a lot of effort in that direction, but I will be trying to, hopefully, during the break in between semesters, and maybe even during next semester, if the final exam grades I got this semester were good. If they're not, I probably won't be putting a lot of attention in that regard. I'll probably be putting a lot more attention in law school, but still, thank you so much for the support, and thank you for saying that the Lee Spring Army backs us up through and through, no matter what. We know y'all do, but it's always, it's always a little bit of stress out there to just know that, and also, what was up with that asshole? Good thing you banned him. But
what ass?
Yeah, I don't want to hear about exams. Well, you will, and you will like it. Like, it's like, I don't mean to be a butthole about them. It's like, you will and you'll like it, or you won't be here. But I gotta say, it's good to know that the Lee Spring Army does back us up through and through. That's one thing that does give us a little bit of assurance. But, it's still a little bit tough because we have to take the brunt of everything. We take the brunt of people constantly, calling up our law school and trying to have us kicked out of law school, constantly harassing us. It's never ending. Even when it looks like the drama has ended, there's still a group of people out there who are just hell-bent on trying to figure out any way to ruin our lives or harass us. We just try and, put it in the background. But one thing that does make us happy to know is that the Lee Spring Army does back us up all the way. And I got to thank you so much for being one of those folks who is a massive supporter of the LSA and us as we continue to keep this thing rolling. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one is going to go to Harvey the Drummer, yet again, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Harvey, for that support. And also, by the way, I forgot to mention earlier, I saw your Twitter account. Also, I saw your drum set, and your drum set puts mine to shame. And also, it looks like you play probably professionally, so you definitely have skills that probably put me to shame as well. He says, have you guys been following the UAP/UFO congressional hearings? The Pentagon and the U.S. government have officially acknowledged the existence of UFOs finally, and several videos of the UFOs have been in active war zones. And thoughts?
And I would say I think I have listened to that a little bit before. It wasn't really anything that was like that shocking to me or that terrifying. It's just well, they're out there apparently. They don't really do much, but they exist. So it's just kind of like an interesting fascination to me, more so than anything that's like like all-consuming. Like the conspiracy theorists, they're like it's what the hell did some of them say? I'm trying to think. It's that freaking Bejelzebub or whatever, something like that. I don't know what they say, but yeah, I have heard about it, and it's interesting to hear. But beyond that, it just kind of is what it is to me. Pretty shocking, but still nothing that I really got like that big into. But still, with that, thank you so much for the support, Harvey the Drummer. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Gilly Flower, who puts in a $20 donation without a comment, and huge shout out to you, Gilly Flower, for that support and helping to keep our operation running. It does mean a lot to us, and seriously, thank you very much. Hey! Also, up next, we have a $20 super chat from Mark Pure Grossi, and he says, great coverage as always, and good luck with the exams. And Mark, you can't mention exams. Stop talking about it.
Don't talk about it. But still, thank you so much for the support, Mark. And thank you for wishing us the best of luck on exams. I hope I do well tomorrow. I hope that I'm not screwed over. And I just hope that everything goes well. But still, thank you so much for wishing us the best. It means a lot to us. And when you think about it, I said I don't like to think about it a lot, but there's a lot to be stressed about. The future of this channel, the exams, a lot of things going on, really. I mean, there's a lot of things to constantly be stressed about, and I try and drown out the exam stress, because adding that on is like getting me to the breaking point, because running this channel alone while being incredibly fun is very stressful, because there's a lot involved. There's viewership. Not that we make anything off of viewership, it still means a lot to me to know that people are watching our stuff. So, always getting stressed out about that. Always getting stressed out about how, we're going to pay bills, if things go downhill, all that kind of stuff. That all adds stress that I'm always dealing with. And that's kind of why I haven't been joking around doing voices as much lately, is because I'm usually just stressed out running these streams. But still, thank you for the support, and thank you for wishing us the best of luck, because hopefully I won't have to be that stressed out about that exam tomorrow. But with that, I hope that does address that well. Thank you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have a $50 super chat from Richard Ager, who's a longtime channel viewer, and thank you very much, Richard, as always, for that very generous support and helping to keep us running. And Richard says, a big thanks. And are the exams over yet? Oh God, he mentioned the exams.
Oh no! Oh,
that idiot came back. That Chris idiot just came back in the live chat under a different account and came in here and said, "F your exams, man. Screw you," and all kinds of other crazy crap. So he got banned the second time.
A second time.
A second time. I get out of my store, Mamma mia! Get your ass out of here.
And hey, I'm just saying, Chris, if you believe that strongly about it, why don't you come down here and say that to our face? You can probably find where we live.
Whoa, Jack!
Hey, I'm just saying, you want to run your mouth like that, back it up. But anyways, with that, hope that does address it well. I hope that doesn't come off too violent to y'all, but here's my thing nowadays with people running their mouths on YouTube. You want to run your mouth over the internet, why don't you come run our mouth to your face? I have a feeling you won't. But anyways, with that, now that we're putting out that, thank you so much once again for the support, Richard. And to answer your super chat, they're not over yet. We still have 3 left. 1's tomorrow and 2 are next week. One of mine is actually on Tuesday, Matthew, which was really weird, and then the other one's on Friday. But Mike's...
all mine are the same days you're on. And tomorrow we got torts. Torts, man. I'm telling you. Defamation and stuff like that. Torts.
I
should be an expert at that by now.
I hate torch. What's the elements of negligence?
Oh, there's 5, man. There's you start off with a duty. Yes, that's right. And then you have a breach. Yeah. And then you have causation. You have to have cause and fact and proximate cause. And then you must have harm. Okay? That's all.
Yeah. Oh, there we go. Good job. So that I hope that does address that well, Richard. I think we're ready for tomorrow. But with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Marion Deemer, who just threw in a $30 donation and says, "Keep it up, just keep it up." And Marion, we're trying to keep it up. I'm telling you what, we're keeping it up the best we can. We're holding it down, we're holding it up, all the above. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I have to say, I thank you so much for the support, Marion Deemer, and thank you for encouraging us to keep it up, because we are keeping it up and we're serving it up hot. Really quickly, to serve another one fresh up to a bot, a username said, y'all still talking about exam? This channel blows.
That's him. That's that Chris guy again.
But here's my thing, Matthew. You didn't even let me get to the punchline there. There was a punchline, you see, because... I have to reread it again now, Matthew. I have to. Anyways, username said, y'all still talking about exam? This channel blows. And all I have to say is it still doesn't blow as good as your mother. But with that, thank you so much once again, Marion Deemer, for the support and helping us to keep it up, because we are keeping it up and serving it hot. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
Man, this is getting as wild in here as Elon Musk telling the advertisers to F off on Twitter. This is getting that crazy, man. It's getting to that level. But anyways, good for him for saying that, by the way. Politics aside, I don't like censorship and in any form. But anyways, moving on from that, we're moving on to our next super chat, which goes to Margaret Hemsley, who puts in a 15. And thank you, Margaret, for actually 3 more super chats in a row. A huge shout out to you. They're each a $15 donation. And Margaret said in the first one, I'll put in another super chat if we get up to 2,000 likes. How long can Russia keep up with the losses of everything? Over 1 million personnel out of action, 200 to 300. I think you are amazing men. And thank you very much for that.
And thank you so much for the kind words, Margaret. And also, Matthew, can you reread the last... I'm going to have to get those one at a time, because I can't really remember all of them all in one go.
The first one says, how long can Russia keep up the losses of everything?
I think they actually will be able to keep up the losses for duration. I think it's more so going to be the economic stresses and domestic pressures at home, really the collapse of Russia from inside, that is going to end the war, probably in about 2 years. And so with that, I hope that does address that first question. We are on to the next one.
The next one said, let's see, that was actually the only question in that one. So the next one that Margaret said, as promised, I'll put in another super chat if we got to 3,000 likes. And we did, so she put in another one. And she said, take a live chat question, please. And also she said, I'm praying that you have focus for the exams. And I'm praying too.
And I'm praying that we do too. And thank you so much for the support, Margaret. And we will make sure to grab a live chat in honor of that super chat. So what do we got, Matthew?
All right. And what we have here is a question from Paul Schultz, who says, when did the Stinger handheld units become available?
For Ukraine... last year. For the United States, it was sometime in the 80s. I think it was like 1981. Let me go type that in. AIM 92 Stinger. No, not that one. The FIM. There we go. 1981. Right on the money. Right on the freaking money, dude. I got the date right. It was 1981.
Oh, it was used in the Falklands War.
Really? Dude, that was fresh. Like, they got this thing fresh off the factory press to use in the Falklands, man. Like, damn. And then, of course, it was used by the Mujahideen in the Soviet-Afghan War, which is probably where it was most famously used. But, yeah, I mean, like, 1981 on the money. So I hope that does address that live chat. Well, I'm so happy I got the date right, because usually I get the date wrong by, like, several years. It's accurate, but it's still, like, at least 10 years off. But with that, I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
All right. And also, just some news, since we didn't have any news on Israel, it looks like the ceasefire has officially collapsed. It looks like Hamas fired a rocket, and from what I'm seeing here, let's see. Yep, the Israeli Defense Forces just tweeted out 5 minutes ago that they're resuming combat operations, and the ceasefire is over because they violated it. So there went that. And with that bombshell out of the way, we're moving on to Margaret's last super chat, which says, I will put in another one if the likes get above 4,000, and make the most of your Friday evening and Saturday, and how long until the Kerch Bridge falls? Mike Tyson voice, please.
One thing I have to say, Margaret Hemsley, is that we always like to punch bots in the mouth. I haven't done voices in so long, I feel like I'm losing them. But I hope that was a good, okay Mike Tyson, and the Kerch Bridge will fall eventually. I think it will take a little longer, but the Ukrainians will get to it. And I also have to say that, can you reread that, Matthew? Because I think I'm not remembering the first part well.
She said she'll put in another one if they get above 4,000, and that was it.
And of course, I do thank you for the support, Margaret. You don't have to throw in another one. It is over 4,000, but you don't have to throw in another one, because I just appreciate you so much for being here with us tonight and helping us to keep it running. But still, thank you so much for the kind words and the support, and also asking the questions that count. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. Thank you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
And on next, huge shout out to Colian Leon and also Heather Fitzgibbon for each putting in a $10 super chat without a comment. And huge shout out to Colian and Heather for that support very much. It does help to keep us running. As we have said many times, it does. And thank you all very much for that support. And the next one goes to JC Atkins, who puts in a 10 and says, just a little something to get yourselves some critter fritters when you need a snack. And from your favorite LSA Navy NCO, take a live chat.
And thank you for the critters. Well, not the critter. Thank you for the critter snacks. We love critter snacks. And thank you so much, JC Atkins, for being here tonight and helping us to keep this thing running. And so, I hope we address that well, and we will make sure to get a live chat in your honor. And so with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and the live chat is going to go to Robert Harrington, who says, is there going to be a possible new war front in South America soon?
Maybe. I haven't really been keeping up to date on that situation all too much, so to be honest with you, I'm a little too ignorant on that situation currently to be able to tell you if there will be an ongoing conflict in South America. So for now, I'll have to declare ignorance. But with that, thank you for sponsoring that question, so that way I can admit that I don't really know a lot about what's going on down there right now. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to JC Atkins, who puts in a 10 and says, this one is just to get everyone to wish BC Skyman Godspeed and a safe return from Ukraine. Also, good luck on the exams. Oh, LSA Navy, NCO, et al., among others.
Oh, he's going to come back. But he hasn't come back since I said something about his mother, so I think that worked. He'll come back in a minute, and then I'll have to really put him down. But still,
wait a minute. Do you remember that guy? Do you remember the guy on the memes? He was like in a class or something like that, and the kids were harassing him. It was the teacher.
Whoever threw that paper, your mom's a hoe. Yeah,
that's basically what you did. That's almost like a verbatim what happened there. It's perfect.
Oh man, dude, honestly, that is. But still. Thank you so much, JC Atkins, for wishing BC Skyman a safe return and a safe trip. And also, thank you for wishing us some good luck on the exams. And being our Lee Spring Navy NCO, our Ellison NCO, or our Lee Spring Army Navy NCO, if we're going off of a Chinese naming convention. But we don't like those communist Chinese. But still, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well, JC Atkins. And thank you for being here with us tonight. And once again, helping us to keep this thing running. And so with that, hope that does address that well. And we're on to the next one.
And also, I saw John Garner say, the LSA don't fail no exam. And I think the way it works in law school, John, as long as you put something on the paper and you just don't, skip it and don't show up to the exam, you won't get an F, I don't think. We'll find out, though. But you still don't want to get the D. Nobody wants to get the D. Nobody wants to get a D, excuse me. That was actually very unintentional, bad phrasing. Nobody wants to get a D, but you want to get something higher than a C, I think. That's where I'm trying to fall. A B or a C, I'll be happy with that.
And I entirely agree with you, Matthew. No one wants to get a D on their exam, but Chris's mom does want to get the D on the exam. That's one thing we can guarantee. Oh man, I hope I know Chris is still watching because crazy people like that are always watching. But I hope you're getting some fun out of this. I bet you they're about to have a blood feud against us because of tonight. But Chris, remember, no matter what, you're not related to your mother by blood. Sorry, I hate to tell you that you were adopted. But anyways, with that, we're on to the next.
All right. So our next one also goes to Margaret Hemsley, who puts in a $14 donation and says, 4,000, let's go. Can we get to 5,000?
And also, thank you once again for the support, Margaret Hemsley. And we did hit 4,000 likes. I think we're probably going to hit 5,000 likes after the stream, but, who knows? We don't know. Maybe we'll hit 5,000 here before the stream ends, but 4,000 likes before the stream's over, that's a record right now. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And thank you so much once again for the support and helping us keep this thing running. And so with that, we're on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Notorious GRG, who puts in a $10 donation and says, from my rescue 16-year-old Shih Tzu Demi, 14 PD, Texas size Shih Tzu, LOL, to your Shiba Inus. Take a live chat.
Shiba Inus. Matthew wishes. We have a corgi named Shiba, but we actually have two Pembroke Welsh corgis, and they're precious dogs. And would you believe it? But I'm not even gonna go there. But anyways, Well, I will go there. Did y'all believe that at some point some people threatened because they didn't like us to try and poison our dogs? So then we really had to start watching them when they went out in the yard because we didn't know someone was going to try and drive by and throw poison into the yard. But anyways, with that, I do thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And really cool to know that your Shiba Inus wish our corgis well. They're like Shiba Inus, but small. But still, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And the live chat goes to Tommy2Tokes, who says, do you guys think that the swamp will freeze enough to facilitate the movement of larger equipment?
Yes, I think it may a little bit, but it's still going to be a little bit difficult nevertheless, because while it will freeze, it's still not going to solidify the ground permanently, especially if there's heavy traffic. So with that, I hope that does address that well, and thank you so much once again for support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Junebug72, who puts in a 10 and says, hi, and good luck with the finals. Oh, and please take a live chat, and thank you, and Slav Ukraine. I'm Yisrael Chai, and good evening.
And thank you so much for the support. Thank you for wishing us luck on the exams, and hopefully we will have some good luck. I'm hoping, I'm praying, but still, thank you so much once again. And what do we have for a live chat, Matthew?
All right, and the live chat question is going to go to the Geek Hippie, who says, is Ukraine better equipped for the winter than the Russians?
Yeah, I think so. Yes, I think so. The Russians have had a whole year to try and prepare for it after the first one, but I still think they're probably going to fall short on the preparation side of things, just because the Russians have an incompetency to account for, which is always going to leave them worse off than the Ukrainians for the most part. But with that, hope that does address that well, and I thank you so much once again for sponsoring that live chat. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we've got a 10 from Venture NW, who says, I always appreciate the updates, but not always able to catch the live streams. And what are your thoughts on North Korea's new satellite? My thought is that it'll help them relax a bit.
I think the new satellite isn't really going to be changing much for them. I mean, rather than letting them see like a satellite view of the world, which I guess would be new for them, it isn't really going to be doing all that much, because if they had access to any kind of internet, which they do for the North Korean security services, they would have already been able to access Google Maps, which, while it's not like a complete like about a 15-minute up-to-date view of a certain area, it still would kind of key them in on where things were at all. But, you know, with that, I hope that does address that well. And thank you so much once again for asking an interesting question right there. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And the next one goes to Susan Lowell, who puts in a 10 and says, best luck on your exams. And also, Chris, how's your mother? She didn't say that, but I said that.
Thank you so much for the support, and wishing us the best on the exams. Because while, well, you know, I'm trying to hold back from beating up on Chris a little bit too much, because I just want it to be enough where he wants to, you know, come down here and beat us up or knock us around a little. But nevertheless, I do thank you for wishing us the best. I really do. I'm going to hold back on that one until later. We'll unload later if he comes back, and I bet you he will. But still, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one. Thank you so much once again.
And the next one goes to Tim Hull, who puts in a 10 and says the MEM 72A/M48 Chaparral was another air defense system back in the 70s and the 80s.
Thank you for sharing that. I forgot about that one. You're right. The MEM 72 was around. Here it is. Matthew, you'll find this one neat, because it's literally just taking like some AIM-9s, mounting them onto the back of this artillery tractor, and then that's the anti-air system.
That's pretty cool. I like the bronze missiles.
Yeah, they bronzed them.
Man, they out here, you know, flexing on them.
And also, look, that's how the gunner got in and out. You just flipped up the plexiglass, hopped in, and then you start operating the system. It's a lot like the Avenger, but a really neat system. And you're correct. I completely forgot about that one. I shouldn't have. I'm ashamed, and therefore I shall commit seppuku. But still, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that well, and thank you for clarifying that, because I did get that wrong. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And for legal reasons, there will be no commission of seppuku. But anyways, moving on to our next super chat, we have a $10 donation from Joseph Enternaco, who's a longtime channel viewer, and he just puts in a 10 without a comment. And it's good to see you again, Joseph, and thank you once again for helping to support the channel, and we do appreciate it very much. And with that being said, we have a $10 super chat from Boulder Boy, who says, for tomorrow, a paid day off to pass exams.
And thank you for paying the day off, so that way we could do the exams. I'm scared of Scooby-Dooby doing the exam. I don't know how it's going to go, but hey, it's okay because we have the Lee Spring Army backing us up all the way. And so that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that well, and thank you for helping us to keep this thing running. And final account said, "Don't do it." I'm just kidding. That's not happening. I'm just kidding. It's a joke. But anyways, thank you so much once again. We are on to the next one.
And the next one is going to go to Monsieur Gaston, who puts in a 10. It says 24-hour Liberty Pass.
You know that song, Matthew?
Yes.
Monsieur Gaston, here with us tonight, Gaston. Gaston. He was the first Sigma. But a mad respect to Monsieur Gaston, and thank you so much for helping this channel to keep on running and giving us a 24-hour Liberty Pass. And I do enjoy the Liberty, and I will take the Liberty. I cracked myself up. But still, thank you so much once again. Hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
All right. And the next one goes to Rotor Max, who puts in a 10. It says, always like your updates and good luck with the test tomorrow. R.
That be some fine Peruvian, bro. But still, thank you so much for wishing us the best on the exams. We will try. And thank you for being a big fan of this channel and giving us some kind words. Kind words do mean a lot. And also, is he back?
He's back, but now he's out.
Oh my lord.
Arrgh, be gone, you bastard.
I'm back, took your exams, get more mad. Well, I'm not as mad as you, knowing that your mother is such a well, we're not cut myself off
Jack,
right there.
Whoa!
Says we're mad, continues to make new accounts to get on our channel. What a twist. Not as much as a twist as his mother did, but still, what a twist. Still, with that, we'll see him come back again. I promise y'all, we'll get him again. But with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Frank Valaris, who puts in a 10 and says, keep running. I prefer walking.
Man, I'm like Forrest Gump. I was running. But still, thank you so much for the
thank
support.
you, Frank.
And we will keep running, Frank. We will keep running. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to LSA Sergeant Figment yet again, who puts in a 10 and says, this one is for tomorrow's non-existent stream. Always here to report for duty and always ready to wait for orders. Salute to the LSA. NCOs rule.
And NCOs do rule. They are the backbone of most Western militaries. The true ones that do the work. That's what the NCOs tell me, at least. But the officers say they do all the work, but the NCOs say otherwise. I still want to thank you so much for the support and helping the channel to keep on running. And thank you for being here and giving us some words of encouragement and helping us to keep this thing rolling. And so with that, hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we got another one from LSA Sergeant Figment, who puts in a 10 and says, trivia question. Part of my family is from Lviv. Lvov. Are they Ukrainian or are they Ukrainian or Polish or both? Go ahead. What's the answer, you think?
Joshua, what kind of transition? What's that? You're like,
I was about to give the answer. You wrote it in the question.
The answer is, while historically they would be Polish, but technically they would most likely be a Ukrainian-Polish mix. But what's the answer?
I must have read the thing. He says both. They've lived there for multi-generations.
I actually didn't read that one. I wasn't even able to see that one right now. No, I swear. Like, on God. but like, I took a good guess because historically Lviv is a Polish city. It was always a part of Poland, Lithuania, or Poland at some point. It was only until after World War II that it became Ukrainian. The Polish actually have a legitimate like land claim to Lviv, by the way. You know, really a lot of Belarus and Ukraine. But, you know, the borders are where they are now. That claim's gone. But still, that is pretty interesting to know because over time, over the past 70 years, you would expect that the Polish-Ukrainian, the Polish population would have eventually started to shift into a Polish-Ukrainian population. So really cool to know. And also, thank you for sharing that. And a really neat piece of European history. Because for most of history, Lviv wasn't Lviv. It was actually Lvov, spelled L-V-O-V, because that's the Polish spelling of the name of the city. But with that, I hope that does address that well, and thank you so much once again for support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and also, excuse me if you hear the smacking. I've tried this shredded gum. I forgot the name of it. It's over here, but I forgot the. Let's see. It's called Big League something.
Big League.
It's very good. And whenever I start getting anxious about these exams, I start chomping on that stuff like there's no tomorrow. And I've chomped through a whole bag. So with that being said, moving on to our next one, we have a 10 from Harvey the Drummer, who says, beaches, that's beaches, get stitches. Trolls, get 86s. Toyotas.
Oh, damn. they be getting the Mac. But still, thank you so much for the support, Harvey. And I gotta say, I like that little motto right there. I think I'm gonna start using that one myself. But nevertheless, we've got to keep this thing rolling, just like the train that's rolling over Chris's mother right now. And so with that, we're on to the next one.
And the next one goes to BC Skyman, who puts in a 5 and does not leave a comment. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I got to thank you so much for the support, helping the channel keep on running. You didn't leave a comment. But nevertheless, your support helps us to keep this thing running. And I got to thank you. Because if it wasn't for you... Oh, I'm just kidding. But still, thank you so much once again. And your support really does mean a great deal to us. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And I see everybody knows the gum I'm talking about. Big League Chew. That is it. And it is like dip for kids. It's kind of weird. It's shredded like dip. And you actually like put it in your mouth similar to dip.
Yeah, you
kind of
pack
weird.
it and everything. Yeah, it's like the chalk sticks you got
good.
as a kid.
You feel like you're really doing the stuff, but you're really not doing it, so you don't get the addiction, which is always a good thing. But anyways, moving on to our next one, we have a 5 from Nick, who says General Order.
But still, thank you so much for the support, Nick. And sadly, we don't. Well, we do general orders for likes. We will do that. But I'll never do a general order for super chats. It's entirely up to y'all if y'all support this channel or not, and how much. I have to be honest, we kind of are making statements these days kind of indicating that support is getting low. And on a day-to-day basis, it kind of is, to the point that we're getting a little concerned. But beyond that, you know, if no one supports the channel, we just disappear. It's kind of up to y'all whether y'all want us to keep running and if y'all want to support us and how much y'all do. But with that, thank you so much once again. But sadly, we won't call a general order. But thank you once again. We are on to the next one.
And up next, shout out to DB, who put in a 5 without a comment, and thank you very much, DB, for that support as well. We also have a 5 from CK Bold, who says, take a live chat question, and we shall. And the live chat question is going to go to, let's see, it goes to Quantum Fighter, who says, was it wrong of Zelensky to cancel the elections, or plan to? I don't know when the elections was or are supposed to be held.
I think they were supposed to be held next year, so... That's still a good ways away, but he did cancel the elections, and he said that nobody wanted them. Gotta be honest, it kind of sounds weird to say that in a democracy nobody wants to hold the usual elections, but, you know, that is what it is. And that was the decision that was heavily deliberated over, and that was the final one. So regardless whether it sounds weird or not, it's apparently the one they're going with. And with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again.
And up next, we have a 5 from Neil Visinot. He says, Chris, I could be your dad, but the dog beat me over the fence.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Stop. He's dead.
That's a violation.
Oh, my God. That is a crime right there, what Neil just said. Oh, my God. Dude, I was getting pretty rough. That is worse. That is bad. Good job, Neil. Dang. Laying out on Chris. You know, he's just seething right now. You know he's making another account to come on here. But with that, thank you for the support, Neil. And dang, Neil is pulling out the heavy artillery. But with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support and the raw roast. And we're on to the next one.
All right. And the next one goes to Green Eyed Girl, who puts in 5 and says, smack that like button.
And thank you so much for the support. And make sure to smack that like button, y'all, because it does help our channel to get out there even further. Hopefully even further out there than Chris's mom was able to, because just about everyone in America knows who she is. But still, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Neil Visinot once again. This time he puts in something a little bit more PG. He says, calling it. $5 Friday. General order. Do it.
And I can't. If y'all want to do a little general order, y'all can, but I can't ever like make a general order for super chats. It's just it's against like what I feel is right. To me, I can't like make y'all do that. I can't make y'all support this channel, but y'all can if y'all want to, and y'all can, you know, decide how much y'all want to too. But still, thank you so much once again. And also, I would like to take a quick mention to Panama Floyd. He said that he stopped supporting the channel a while ago because he was diagnosed with lung cancer, and I hate to hear that.
Me too. I hate to hear that.
I completely understand. You've been an old guard here forever, and that's the thing. We don't ever want anyone to feel like they're obligated to, and I hate to feel that you even had to make the mention of that to us, and we made you feel like I'm terribly sorry. And I hope that that ends up well and it's all done and over with before you even know it. You end up winning against the lung cancer. But still, thank you for still being here with us tonight, Panama Floyd, because that's all that counts. And so with that, thank you so much once again. Thank you, Panama, for being here. And do not worry at all. We completely understand. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Charge, who puts in a 5 and says, where did you guys get your military knowledge? Through study or family? And I personally don't have the military knowledge of equipment quite like the enforcers got, but my area of study was in political science and basically international studies. So the interaction between countries and states. So sadly, I don't get to discuss my expertise very often because it delves into politics, and we don't discuss that here. But the enforcer has a history degree, and that's where he gets most of his knowledge.
Let's be honest. I didn't get any of that knowledge from college or the degree.
No, not really.
I kind of had that all beforehand. To describe myself to y'all, the best way I can say, I'm not diagnosed or anything, but I have like Asperger's syndrome towards like war history. Asperger's, like Chris's mom, but I have Asperger's. I don't know how to say that. Say it, Matthew.
You talking about like on the spectrum type thing? Like,
yeah, you know, like
the autism?
The really obsessive thing where you just really get on one thing and you just go for it.
Yeah, it's Asperger's, like with a P, Asperger's.
Yeah, but I can never say that P. Like I just say Asperger's. I got Asperger's. You know, eat up, folks. But anyways,
Whoa! What the hell, man? No.
But anyways,
no.
Anyways, past that bad joke. I just really obsess heavily over war history. Like, I can be bored to death about everything. You tell me war history, I will be just locked in tight. Like, that's what I do. And Matthew can tell you that I was, like, 15 years old, and I was already able to tell people crap that most people wouldn't know about most wars. Like, Matthew can tell you that he was taking history classes in college, and he'd be like, who's Voltaire? And I would just tell him everything about Voltaire on the spot, like, give him the entire biography of Voltaire and everything. You know, for some reason I've just been able to do stuff like that. It's just something that interests me greatly. But with that, I hope that does address that well. It's not study. Well, it is study, but it's like self-study in a way. And it's not family either, because while a lot of my family did, well, actually every male in my family on my mother's side actually served in the military at some point through history, I didn't really get to talk to much of them about their experiences, really learn a lot from them. So it was kind of on my own. But with that, hope that does address that well. And Miss Jesus said, gee, this is evolving quick. And yes, it is. But with that, I hope that does address that well. And thank you so much once again for supporting the kind words as well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a 5 from Randy Tosto. And thank you very much, Randy, for the support. He says, best Ukraine news, and take one from the chat.
And thank you so much for saying it's the best news. We try our best to meet that high standard every night, and I'm glad that we do in your mind. And so thank you for the support. We will get a live chat.
All right, and the live chat goes to goes to Nicholas Condor, who says, any confirmation of the Kyiv Post article of train explosion in Staromylnivka tunnel? And we do have some of that. We have it on the Twitter page. It's been reposted there.
I didn't cover it here on the channel. Sadly, to be honest with y'all, it wasn't me deciding that it wasn't newsworthy. It was just me kind of forgetting that that was the thing that happened today. And so that's why it wasn't in the news. So sadly, I can tell you that it did happen, and hopefully it'll be stopping Russian-Chinese trade by rail for a little while, but beyond that, I didn't include it in the news just because I forgot. But still, thank you for the support. I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and with that being said, we're moving on to our next one, which goes to Harvey the drummer. Once again, this time he puts in a 5. It says, damn, Neil, you cold, son. He says, Matthew, I played semi-professionally for 20 years, and that photo on X is when my band opened for Saliva last year. I must admit, I've never heard of that band, Saliva. I would like to, I'd like to listen to a song from them and hear what it's all about. But also, very nice drum set you had there, by the way. I was very impressed by it. And also, played semi-professionally for 20 years. You definitely are way, way more experienced than I'll ever be. and could probably smoke me. And also, nice drum set once again. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta thank you so much for the support, Harvey, again, and also really cool to hear that you're a drummer for Saliva. Usually, it's hard for me to drum up a lot of Saliva, but it's cool to know that you can. And also, thank you for sharing that little tidbit with us, and thank you for the support and helping the channel to keep on running. And with that, we are moving. Well, actually, before we move on, Heather Fitzgibbon said, I bet you could say the alphabet backwards at a very young age or something similar. I couldn't, but one thing I would do for fun is I would come up with fake languages. Like I would come up with like alphabets for them and stuff like that. That was something I really love to do, and I really love the concept of like understanding multiple foreign languages, but I've never really been able to like sit down and dedicate myself to learning one incredibly well. That's why I know like little tidbits of each language, but I don't know enough to actually fluently speak, read, or write any of it. But with that,
but also you don't actually have Asperger's, right? Enforcer's just saying that because I actually knew a guy with Asperger's, and you could tell it very quickly. Right off the bat, you could tell something was not quite right. The guy obviously couldn't help it. But no, the Enforcer does not have that.
Yeah, like I have to clarify that I do not have Asperger's. Hopefully, I'm saying that correctly. I have to like give a little space there. I don't have that. I'm just kind of kidding around because I obsess really heavily, like I would have Asperger's, but I don't have it. So I just want to clarify that. But still. At a young age, while I don't have Asperger's, I still would like try and come up with fake languages and stuff with alphabets and everything that would have their own like linguistic rules. And I did come up with like 2 of them that actually worked, but
you're just crazy. That's all.
Man, I'm crazy, man.
Man, it's general crazy.
As my mother would say, I'm a little eccentric. I think that's what it is.
No, that's not the right word either.
I don't know what she says, but she says something. Anyways, with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Jacob Wasaki, who puts in a 5 and says, I'm not sure why my super chats are in increments of 99 cents, but we'll figure it out.
Hey, we'll figure it out, man. We'll figure it out. But with that, thank you so much once again for the support. And hey, we'll learn. We'll figure it out. But still, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that doesn't address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Wyatt Logan, who puts in a 2 and says, thank you both for your hard work and the sacrifices. And thank you, Wyatt.
And thank you so much, Wyatt, for enjoying our hard work and our sacrifices as we continue to get the news out to y'all. And so with that, thank you so much once again. We are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Barry Badworth, who puts in a 2 and says, Baba Yaga hunting orcs in the snow with a thermal. Is that right?
Yeah. Hunt them down. But still, thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and we are now moving into our live chat questions. And up first, we have the Morse code decoders of the stream. Tonight, I could have sworn I only saw Mark Hodges, but if I missed someone, please let me know and I will shout you out before we end tonight. But Mark Hodges said, tonight's Morse code reads, we are going to see a victory for Ukraine in the future. Long live the LSA. Same as last night. Slava Ukraine, Slava Israel, Slava LSA.
And that is the message. You got that dead on the nail. It is the same as last night. Because the Morse code machine that I used to encrypt messages into Morse code wasn't working, so I wasn't able to make a new one tonight. But you did get it right. It is the same one as last night, and thank you for deciphering it to find out. And so with that, we are now moving on into the live chats, but due to time constraints, which are very constraining and very time-consuming, we sadly will only be able to answer a limited amount of live chats. We are almost at 3 hours in, and usually we try and end around 2.5 hours these days, especially with the final coming tomorrow, so we'll only be able to answer 3. But with that, we are on to our first one.
And also, on the Morse code, shout out to Paul Schultz. He also solved it as well. Apparently, I didn't see it, or it got caught up in YouTube, or it got put into the oblivion. Something happened like that, but I did not see it. Huge shout out to Paul Schultz and Mark Hodges tonight for figuring out the Morse code. And real quick, we do have one more super chat from You Perfection, who puts in the 10. And said, this is not a general order, it's a community rally. I could make a joke about that, but I don't think it'd be appropriate. He says, thanks for the quality coverage and good luck on the exams.
And thank you so much, You Perfection. And thank you for saying it's a community rally. I don't really know. Rally here in the Southeast, it tends to have a certain connotation, which makes us scared. But hey, you're from Canada, so you know nothing about that. Nevertheless, I do thank you so much for the support, and I thank you for saying that it's just folks who enjoy the channel who want to support. We love to know that people do. because while we were able to do amazing things every single Sunday on the fundraisers, raising thousands of dollars, usually the day-to-day support on the channel is a lot less. Well, it's significantly less. It's not even just kind of less, it's a lot less. So everyone who supports the channel is really going out of their way to help us to keep things running, and we thank y'all so much for having kind of a community initiative to help us to make this thing possible. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And we are on to Neil Vizanons before we even get on to the first live chat of the night.
And Neil Vizanon says, I'll be 30 in April. I'm older and wiser. But in middle school, I was committing war crimes with my mouth.
Damn, son. Thank you for the support, Neil. I don't know what that means, but I will say middle school was a wild time. People be wildin' back in the day. People still be wildin' now. I feel like people don't really grow out of high school anymore. Like, at least from what I've seen, like, a lot of the people who we graduated with from high school still have, like, high school mindsets. And what's even crazier to me, Matthew, is that we, like, went into college. Well, I went into college, like, right after school ended, like, in the summer, and have already graduated. And I'm now ending my first semester of law school, and there are still people who I graduated with at the same time who are just making it to their senior year of college.
Oh, I know. Yeah, some people take it part-time and stuff like that. And my view is, if you take it part-time and you drag it out like that, you slowly start losing your drive and momentum. And then you start having problems about wanting to drop out of it and stuff like that, and you end up, you know, getting a little bit lost. That's why we've gone hard all the way through, and we're still going hard, and we're not going to take a semester off or nothing like that. Still got to keep going.
I like the way you put that. But with that, hope that does address that
Man,
well.
that's a stretch right there. That's what you're talking about. That's a stretch.
Man, no, it wasn't, because you knew exactly what it was about right when I got done saying that. But anyways, with that, we were on to the first live chat of the 3 live chats.
And this one goes to Mark Hooper, who says, when Ukraine gets the F-16s, where will they safely house them?
Most likely in the airfields to the farthest western part of the country, mostly near Lviv, and they'll probably rotate those aircraft around heavily through many different air bases, so that way the Russians don't have a predictable location to attack to try and destroy an F-16. That would be my biggest guess at the moment on how they'll be storing the F-16s. But with that, we are on to the second to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Mark Hooper, who says, Matt, do you believe that Ukraine is winning the drone war? It seems like they are, but don't know what the Russians are doing in that field, and hope Ukraine kicks butt. And yes, I do. I think they're winning the drone war, but Enforcer, what do you think?
They're certainly winning the drone war from a doctrinal perspective, a production perspective, and a technological perspective, all 3 categories that matter. I would say that we're seeing that they're doing quite well, and beyond that, that's really all I can say. So with that, I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who is the lucky last person who threw in the lucky last question of that night?
And this one is from Will Callahan, who says, is it becoming trench warfare because Russia is run out of armor and have to revert to World War I tactics?
Maybe. That could be a reason, but I also think it's mostly going into trench warfare. Even if the Russians had tanks, they can't really use them without them being destroyed very quickly, so they get relegated into a support role, or they just get destroyed instantly and they don't even matter on a battlefield perspective. So that's why I think it's starting to devolve into trench warfare. And on top of that, both sides have had so much time in some areas of the front to prepare defenses that it's a killing field once you enter them. There's really no way to get through. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. And also, folks in like the live chat were trying to explain why it may be taking so long for some people to go to college. Let me tell y'all something. The people I'm talking about in particular, I still am friended with them on Instagram, and they do not have jobs. Like, they just party. That's all they do. They just rave at some of these universities endlessly. And it's like, don't y'all like want to like get on with it and like, you know, get to work? Like, that was our whole thing.
They're getting on with it.
Oh, they're getting on with it, but not like getting on with it like productively. It's just kind of like idling. And I'm not one to idle. It's like I got to keep on going and get places and do things. And that's why we do this, because I just can't sit around and like do something that doesn't feel productive. It has to be productive. It has to be doing something. It has to be helping out somehow, or something like that. But with
idling's for trucks. Man, you're not a truck. You're a man.
Man, idling is for Chris because he's still stuck on his mother and what she's doing. But with that...
Whoa.
But with that, on that bombshell, it's time for us to end the night. I do want to thank everyone so much for being here with us tonight and enjoying the stream. If y'all have, make sure to hit that like button. I cannot even ask y'all to do that anymore because like 4,300 of y'all have hit the like button. I think everyone who could hit it. But if you still haven't hit it, make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe and make sure to share this channel with your family and friends because, like Chris's mom, we would love for the channel to be known by everyone everywhere. And so with that, thank you all so much once again for being here with us tonight. And of course, we will be back on Saturday night. Make sure, everyone, to tell your folks, if you're in a Discord with them, if you're friends with them on Twitter or somewhere else and they're a member of the Lee Spring Army, make sure to remind them that we're not on air tomorrow. So that way they're not shocked and that way they can spend their time well tomorrow too and then come back on Saturday for the next 48 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine. And so with that, good night. Good luck. Take care. Stay safe. Slava Ukraini. God bless Israel. God bless the United States. Long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army will never die, and I will see you all on Saturday night again for the next 48 hours.
And good night, folks. Thank you all for another great stream. It's been a good one. And tomorrow, hopefully we do good on those exams. And, of course, good night, and join us Saturday. Sorry, great.
The Lee Spring Army sends its regards.